Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Testing Room, where 3+2 of the gaming industry's best video game consultants who have never actually consulted on a video game bring you new topics each and every week. I'm Jake, aka Odin.
Casey, just Casey.
I'm Christian, aka Sudovoodoo45.
Go ahead, Preston.
I'm Preston, aka Funkadelic Jedi, and we're going out of order for some reason. It's okay.
And I'm Alex, aka the Godfather. And the reason we're going out of order is because what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Two Worlds podcast. I'm Alex here, as you heard, with Jake, Casey, Preston, and Christian, the black, blue, yellow, and pink Rangers to my red.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
I will let you guys figure out which color I put with which person. So have fun.
I call Black Ranger. I call
Oh,
Dibs.
No, I put them in an order specifically, so it's fine. I already picked for you.
Oh, you
Thanks, dude.
did?
I don't
That's
care. I
fun.
just do what I want.
Mm-hmm. So Jake, I appreciate the I'll pass it back over to you in a second, but I appreciate your job was harder because you had to do more math than I've ever had to do. We've never had this many co-hosts. I've only ever had to do 3+1. So good on you.
Yeah, it was tough, but I powered through.
Very nice.
All right.
So I'll let you kick things off today. What are we doing? Why are we all here?
Well, we're all friends. We've all
Yeah.
been on each other's various shows.
Well, this
and-
is my first for me.
Well, right, but I just meant that they've been on ours, both
Yeah.
of ours, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was high time that we all got together and had a proper crossover. So,
Yeah.
new year, new us. So yeah, we're gonna have fun. I think Casey and I mentioned it last episode, but I got a copy of Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck's Les Miserables and War and Peace in everyone's hands. So we're gonna talk about that here in a little bit. But yeah, Preston, I believe we have comment corner.
We do with no comments. We're all good. But please feel free to stop by and check me out on twitch.tv/testingroompod, as we've been doing Street Fighter Sunday mornings. Come hang out for a little bit, watch me suck ass at Street Fighter and get my shit kicked in.
You made
You
up
know-
to Iron Rank.
I did. I mean, I've been very good this past Sunday. I was like 10-3. I actually did well. I was
I'm
happy
talking.
about it.
Can I
shit.
say,
Just take
Preston-
your dubs.
I was
Can I
like
say
1 and
about your
9.
comment corner that the thing I appreciate most is clearly people would go, oh, if you're going to do a podcast, we're going to get together, you probably hop on early, even if there's not like a traditional production meeting, like maybe you talk for a moment. Preston always has ample time to tell you if he has comments or if he does not have comments, but he always leaves you in suspense until you pass
He
it
always
over
leaves
for
you
the
guessing.
very first
Right.
time.
Never know. There's no way you can find out. There's no way you can go to youtube.com/the testing room and give us a comment down on our videos or on our Instagram. It's fine.
The problem is sometimes people just text us
Yeah.
or message us like,
Start
hey,
getting
at
fans
work-
who aren't friends.
yeah.
Quick giving out my personal number.
Amazing.
I have one or two people that come into the shop and will tell me their answers to the Fantastic Four, but rarely does anybody ever comment it. Which I don't mind that they'd rather tell me in person.
Sure, that's fine. It
Interactions
helps
is
us.
interactions. It is what it is.
Have you
The
ever
algorithm.
like, are these people you're really close with, or just like people that maybe listen because they shop and you're not super close? Like, I guess my question is, have you ever just looked at them and gone like, oh, sorry, you missed your chance. It's done. Too late.
No, but I mean, some of the people that have told me, like, I just didn't know that they listened until they had a Fantastic Four answer. And then after that, it's like, oh, well, I mean, they take the time to listen to our dumb show. I'm going to be friendly with them. You know what I mean? And then we become close. So there you go.
Yeah.
Any listeners that want to become close, just talk to me.
Listen to our podcast. please.
Just come spend your money. Just come spend your money at my store. We'll
Yeah.
be friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you
We can
keep doing
chit-chat.
it, I might get you my social security number by the end of it. So just like keep coming and
We'll never know.
Yeah. You could be the lucky person to be so close with me that I give you my tax ID.
Not to derail us before we get into like what we've read and other things, but
Oh, this was off
just
the rails?
when it comes to like people stealing stuff. I don't know about you, but does anybody here have an Instacart login?
No.
Is anybody like so lazy? Okay, so pandemic, you had to order groceries. We have just decided, has decided, like I'm too lazy to go into the store anymore because it takes a lot of time to shop. So I do Instacart. I have never had an account of any sort that has attempted hacks more than that. I get about here's your Instacart verification number emails 3 times a day, every day. Like, I don't
Wow.
know who cares that much. And I use Apple Pay, so you wouldn't even get my actual card number anyway. Like, it's not a big deal, but like, there must just be a hacking farm somewhere or somebody just running a script that just tries to hack Instacart of all things 1 billion times a day.
Do you want me to answer it for you?
Sure, absolutely.
And I do not take this in the way that I know you're going to take it because you love to dramatize things when I say them to you.
That is absolutely not true.
Yeah. Their user base is just, especially after the pandemic, has been heavily skewed towards the elderly. And so they are used to the very easy and simple passwords that the elderly typically use to protect their things. So they probably are just assuming that you're an old person that can't go get groceries.
There's no possible way, as one of the older people on this podcast, I could take that offensively at all.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny that Preston even chimed in because I know that he goes to a grocery store and buys his groceries like a human.
I like to get out of the house.
Right.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with you. Right. So Alex being the only person that was using Instacart who's not 85.
Convenient, man. I'm not going to do a plug for Instacart because they charge way too much for delivery and stuff, but it is convenient. And I'm
But hey,
lazy as shit.
Instacart, if you're listening and want to sponsor the episode,
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you want
that is-
if you want the Two Worlds podcast, we'll allow it. We'll plug you up so hard.
we deny
you know-
people all the time, but we would allow Instacart.
Yeah.
So we have a running joke between us, which we haven't really said in a while, but I'm sure Christian and Preston still feel the same way. But like from way back in the day, when we had a really old podcast with an acquaintance we don't talk to anymore. We always said we would make it if we had like Canada Dry as one of our sponsors. And man,
right.
that's
Oh my
what I
God.
shoot for. If we could ever get that, if we could ever lock down that Canada Dry
I'm
sponsor,
retiring right then.
we'd be done. We'd be done.
You know, I would never be surprised if one day you guys legitimately got a Gamefly code.
I'm trying. It's got
I know
2 years
you
plus
are.
now.
And I
He's
mean,
the only subscriber. Sooner or later, they have to pay.
I've
attention.
reached out and I've essentially gotten here. You can put these banners on your website. I'm like, you don't have a website. I'm sorry.
But also,
Website.
that's stupid. Give me a code.
yeah,
I know. I wish they would. I asked them. They said they don't do that.
Well,
They
that's why they have
should.
one subscriber.
exactly.
I feel like if you keep emailing that one person that keeps responding saying we don't do that, they'll eventually give you
CEO, you
more than a
mean?
we don't do that, and you can become friends.
just
Like,
give
that'll
you a
be
fake
your
code.
in. Which would be really funny.
There's only one person he's talking to. It's the owner of Gamefly.
Yeah. It's the only person who works there.
It goes to his
Dale.
personal
Envelope.
Gmail.
Dale in his apartment attached to his like big just farm warehouse out there. It does nothing but games. He goes and purchases from Walmart, sends them out to just Preston.
Anytime people get too close, he's like, pocket game, and then he throws a disc at their face.
I just borrow games from a guy named Dave. It's not really Gamefly.
Yeah.
Dave Fly.
Yeah.
Dave
Fly.
Fly.
All right. Sorry for the derailment.
Well, I got a couple of trivia cards here.
Okay.
Casey and I usually do trivia. And I thought it'd be fun to extend it to you guys. I don't know that any of them are terribly difficult.
Yeah, see, you say that, but there's plenty of times that I listen to your show and you guys do your trivia, and you guys will be like, oh man, dude, this is a slam dunk. And then you say the question, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what that answer is.
Can I
There's
also put you
there's
on the spot,
sometimes
Jake?
where like if the answer is Batman, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's easy. But
What was that, Alex?
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah.
and give you something to do before the end of the show, can we also do a Sonic ad lib
Oh,
or like a Mad Libs? And I'll tell you, and let me tell you why. Because I will never forget. I am a type A personality that likes to please people, and I will never forget doing that with you. And you were giving answers that are too like PC, and I wasn't going outrageous enough, and that has haunted me for like 2 years now.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, we can absolutely. It's right here. So
I mean, we do trivia too. I'm down for trivia, but I also
Yeah, we'll do
I
both.
just also want to redeem myself in the Sonic Mad Libs with everybody here.
sure. No, that sounds super fun.
He visited a furry website, so now he's ready to go.
Visited, logged in.
I just want a DeviantArt. It's fine.
All right, so let's see here. Christian, I'll give you what I think is the easiest one. All
Oh
right.
boy.
So, it's multiple choice if you need it. What is the nickname of Daredevil's friend and business partner, Franklin Nelson?
I know it is one.
I'm sure
I
you
feel like
do.
this is
Yeah,
gonna be the only
I'm,
one I know too.
I'm certainly gonna need the multiple choice.
All right. We've got A, Froggy, B, Foggy, C, Nelly.
I'm I'm gonna go with Foggy. Final answer.
Correct.
Nice.
Nice.
I
Nicely
had no
done.
idea.
Yes, sir.
Not a
I was
clue.
hoping you were gonna go with that good old Nelly
Yeah.
Nelson over here.
I just love that Froggy was a choice because that just
Mhm.
made me think of like Big the Cat, like a gritty Big the Cat with, Froggy as his best friend.
I need to see Big the Cat in Daredevil's
Yeah.
costume. All right, Preston, because you're next on my screen here.
Sure.
What longtime adversary of the Hulk became the Red Hulk?
Oh, I know who it is, but I don't know his exact name. Do I get multiple choice?
No.
Okay. Um,
Only Christian gets the training wheels.
because he's going to be showing up in the Thunderbolts movie. General Ross.
Yep. I was like, boy, you just
Fuck
said
yeah.
half of it.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's the first part of his
Thunderbolt
name.
Ross.
Thunderbolt Ross. That's right. Yeah, General Ross.
Today I learned there's a Red Hulk.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a gray Hulk.
Don't look
He's gonna be-
into it.
Hulks.
Hey, Christian, he's going to be played by Harrison Ford, the new Thunderbolts movie.
No
A
way.
A CGI'd Harrison Ford
Yep.
Mhm.
because he's like 83 years old now.
Gonna Hulk out.
Now he's actually been working out for it. He's gotten fucking huge.
Yeah,
That's
also off
so-
of baby stem cells because that man
Yeah.
is 1 foot in the grave.
Wheeling him out into the fucking out of the crypt that he stays in.
I saw a quote about that though, where they're like, he was like, "Yeah, Disney said it was either this or do another Han Solo, so I signed up for this."
Oh no.
Yeah.
You know, if I was given the option, I would too, because he's already seen what they can do with CG without him actually being on set. And as a Marvel movie, you're like never gonna be on set doing action yourself. So why not
Yeah.
collect that paycheck?
Oh yeah.
I'm nervous. I knew the last two, but I'm worried I'm not gonna know this one. It's like pop quiz in school.
It'd be so embarrassing if I got mine and you didn't get yours.
It won't. It won't. It'll
All
be my
right.
life, Christian.
Let's find out. Alex, what villain poses as Hawkeye on Norman Osborn's first government-sanctioned Avengers team?
Of course.
That is like
Of course.
level
Can't be
10
Thunderbolt.
difficulty.
Yeah, no, can't be Thunderbolt Ross or
No,
fucking
no, no,
Foggy
think about it.
Nelson.
Just think about it. Osborn's putting together an Avengers team. Who does he get as Hawkeye?
Would this be a classic villain that's like been in the Sinister Six and other things before, or is it like a different sort of?
I mean, you
He
know
uses
who it
villains,
is.
yeah.
You know who it is. I'll say that much.
I know who it is, and no multiple choice on this one.
Nope.
Bullseye.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
There
I
we
was gonna say, like,
go.
Bullseye?
How did they go? Yeah.
Good old Colin Farrell.
He used Siri. I know he did. He had a voice.
I wasn't
for
on.
chat
I was off
within-
mute.
He
Kind of
was
like at the
sitting
reflection in your
there.
glasses. Yeah. see me
Yeah,
looking.
dude. He was like, "There's no way I know this," and then all of a sudden, randomly was like,
We
"Oh,
hear
it's
the clacking
Bullseye."
of the
Right, dude.
keyboard.
You saw this big ass thing right here most of the time.
You just
I'm
see
not
it.
typing. I'm not typing quickly.
You don't need to type. You just hold your finger down the side button. You just got one finger. I know those work.
I can't.
Siri's
I can't.
listening.
I guess I can. Theoretically,
I
I can
know you
barely.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do with the other hand.
All right, Casey. Last one to you. It is multiple choice if you need it.
Or
The demon Mephisto first appeared in what superhero's comic book?
Oh, I thought this would be a Diablo question. I was like, "Yo."
yeah, I'm gonna need the choices on this one.
All right. A. Doctor Strange. B. Silver Surfer. And C. Thor.
I'm gonna say Thor.
Incorrect.
Damn.
Strange.
Nope. Silver Surfer.
Oh, shit.
It's
Okay.
I think it's issue 2 or 3. It's one of the two.
Yeah, because I knew it wasn't. I've read enough early Doctor Strange where I was like, I know it's not him.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Totally
I
makes
sa- I
sense
saved
to
the hardest
bring
one
in
for
a
Casey.
demon.
yeah. It's like
Yeah,
I
it
got-
makes sense to like introduce a demon with like a cosmic story. Why would you not? Because you have no other characters
Demons
that
live in
would
the
fit
space,
him.
just like the gods.
Because
like
it was
Thor.
the Marvel offices in the 60s and they probably just ripped a line of coke and were like, demon and silver surfboard. I don't know.
and Stanley's like, slap my name on it. I'll take it. I don't care.
Excelsior. Anyway, good job, guys. Good job, everyone but Casey.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to do the Sonic Mad Lib. We'll just go around in that same order for answers here.
Okay.
For those listening, if you haven't listened to one of our famous Sonic Mad Libs, it's going to get absolutely filthy. So,
Yeah.
skip ahead if you don't want to hear it.
You got both me and Casey here. Get ready. Dirty boys.
All right, Christian, a place.
A sex dungeon.
That's as dirty as Christian gets, just so everyone's aware. That's as dirty as he gets.
Yeah, that's true.
Fine, it'll go to Preston for the or for the adjective, so it'll get real gross.
All right, Preston, a noun.
Dildo.
Alex, a noun.
Water sports.
Oh,
You can see Christian hates it already.
I do.
Casey, a number.
69.
Yep.
All right.
Always.
Christian, a celebrity.
Oh, Harvey Weinstein.
Ooh, okay. Preston, I need a verb ending in ing.
Fucking. I learned from
I'm not gonna lie, because
lie.
because of the furry implications here, I thought he was definitely gonna say yiffing, and I was like, oh god.
Christian knows
I
more about
don't
furry
even
vocabulary than
know.
I do.
I don't
'cause
even know what
the fuck
yiffing
that
is.
Yeah.
You want to share with the class,
Yeah.
Christian?
Yeah. Christian.
I
you
have
should
no
know
idea.
all
I
the-
just know it's related to furries. That's it.
Oh,
Christian,
okay,
Christian,
okay,
Christian is your,
okay.
I don't.
Jake,
I
your
just
best
know
friend that doesn't watch sports that has a secret sports room in his house.
that's
I-
just not the case.
Hey, Jake, you have control to put the screen up. Just control the screens and pull up yiffing
Yeah.
so we
put that
can
on your
all
Google
learn.
search.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. We might get canceled. We might cancel 2 shows with 1 stone. All right, Alex, an adjective.
Let's go vigorously.
No. Got me excited.
Casey, a plural noun.
Balls. Oh, can I do Stephen Hawking's balls since he was on Epstein Island?
Sure, why not?
Cool.
Okay. Christian, a city.
St. Louis.
Preston, a verb.
Edging.
Okay. Alex, an adjective.
You're muted.
Yep, I know. Tenderly.
Okay. Casey, a person.
Stephen Hawking. He's on my mind. Those flight logs. Like, what was he doing there? Can't be that much fun for him.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Rich people.
Dude,
I'm assuming I've not been in tune to the news the past 2 days, just with my whole hand and sleeping most of the day. Am I getting from context something about Epstein's
There's a new-
documents
yeah.
and
Yeah.
And
Stephen
Stephen
Hawking.
Hawking. Yep.
Yeah.
Jordan Lucas is
boy-
I mean, to be
yeah.
fair, didn't he have kids? So I think it worked. Everything worked. If he didn't have kids, like things worked for him, according to the movie.
Okay, so
It's
to be
animation.
clear, I think the kids came from when he was like,
Not in the chair.
wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he was in the wheelchair at the time. Now he may not have been as advanced, like can't talk in the wheelchair, but I think that stuff came while he was in a wheelchair. I think he came while he was in
Maybe.
a
Yeah, it did.
wheelchair.
But it's not the Stephen Hawking that we all know, which is the point.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
scientific ways to do that stuff without having sex. Yes.
But and then also though, it's like, what's he doing
Thank
with
you,
the
Dr.
kids on the
Preston.
island? Is why I just want to know, because it's like this is him in wheelchair.
No,
going like,
you don't want to know. I
You
don't
really
think you
don't.
want to know.
No.
Yeah.
Or no.
Yeah.
All right, Christian, a verb.
Running. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Away from this conversation, which is what Christian
Yeah.
wants to do.
I'm
So-
just thinking of like Sonic running, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, fucking running.
Yeah.
All right. Preston, another celebrity.
Since we, me and both Alex thought we saw her in the Jurassic Park game trailer, Mia Khalifa.
Okay, that's not where I thought. Okay, whatever.
You didn't actually have to
Whatever.
say that out loud. Because if I'm not mistaken,
It's
why-
recorded on YouTube.
Did we say that? I thought that was more of just a. Was that who I? think
No,
it was?
you
were
said it
like,
first,
what?
and then I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was so awkward. I hated being a part of that.
It did look like her, though. To be fair,
It did. It did look like her.
She's branching out.
Yeah, she sure is.
Whatever.
Alex, a noun.
Oh, what have we not covered? Cock ring, Sonic.
But for his dick.
Casey,
Just
part of the body.
big ol' schlong.
There you go. That's where the ring goes.
Okay, and finally, Christian, an adjective.
bleeding.
Oh, okay.
Oh no!
All right. I feel like I should down this entire thing.
Yeah, you
before-
probably should.
All right. We've got a budding friendship. Tails searched high and low across the sex dungeon to find the legendary Sonic the Hedge dildo. He had heard stories of Sonic, the fastest water sports in the universe, for 69 years. The Hedgehog was the Harvey. Jesus Christ. The Hedgehog was the Harvey Weinstein of super speedy fucking.
Jesus. Oh,
Oh, God.
goodness. That is
Okay.
just bad.
Ooh. He was a vigorous hero among Stephen Hawking's balls, great and small. When Tails finally found Sonic living in St. Louis, he was so excited to finally meet his idol. He hoped that when he grew up, he could edge just like Sonic. And Sonic was just as eager to make a tender friend. This is absolutely insane. He really liked his life with Tom and Stephen Hawking,
Oh,
but he thought it would be great to have someone his own age to run with. And Sonic was secretly flattered. The Tails looked at him like he was Mia Khalifa and thought that he was an incredible cock ring.
oh no.
Get on it.
Sonic was
No.
happy to take Tails under his big old schlong. It was the beginning of a bleeding friendship.
Oh God. Man,
So,
we're-
guys, thanks for tuning in. We all have to go take a very cold shower.
hope you weren't listening to us loudly on
We
speaker. in
need to
front at
figure
work
out-
for your kids.
We need to figure out if we have anybody that listens to these pods that is an
Not
animator.
anymore.
And if you would love to animate these little shorts, would be hilarious.
I mean, nobody from our community will do it, so maybe your community will.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well,
could be the things of torture reading those. I have to animate all of that.
all
Well
right.
done.
Yeah. So shall we talk about the oh wait, you want to go through weeks. So sorry.
Weeks.
Continue.
All right. How do we want to do this? We can just go with our weeks each week. Then we can just say what we read and played this week.
I'll kick things off. I'll make it really, really easy. Because
I had a
if you listen-
psychopath digging around in my hand.
Not yet. Tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow. If you're listening, you know I can't play games. I'm out for a while. It looks like the verdict is going to be around 12 weeks. So I would assume if you tune into the testing room pod, you will be able to literally gauge my descent into destruction and insanity over the next few weeks. 'Cause
I
can't play
can't
games.
wait.
Yeah, it's gonna get wild. So I've been watching shows. I've caught up on Monarch, which is
Same.
not bad and ended up better than I expected. Like I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying that show. It's when I'm going to start going back. I'm going to catch up. I think I'm like 4 episodes back on My Hero. I started watching Demon Slayer and Demon Slayer.
Slave.
Demon Slayer.
Slayer. That's what I thought. Okay. I always get that wrong and I thought I messed that one up. Started watching that. So I'm going to watch all my shows that I'm behind on, which is going to be great, including JoJo. I know that'll make Christian happy. I'll catch up on that. I promise. And then the only thing that I've read has been what we're going to talk about tonight, which is Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck and Les Mis and War and Peace. And I'm so excited to talk about this. So quick and easy.
All right. Me next.
Sure.
All right. So I don't play video games really, and when I do, I play Gigabash, which I don't know if you guys have played that at all. They have a
Yes, we
new it's like a rip off of Smash Brothers with giant monsters.
Oh, right
And-
on.
And they had like a DLC in November that was Ultraman and a couple different Ultra characters, and then the year before they had Godzilla. It's fun, but it's also like since I don't play online, it's just me playing against the same computer shit over and over again, so I don't do it very often.
Fair.
And then I read Shazam issue 7, Doctor Strange 11, Batman 141, and Fantastic Four 15, and then the Les Mis Uncle Scrooge stuff. And then I'm all caught up on Monarch also. Fucking love it. But I'm
Out of
also,
everything you read this week, what was your favorite?
Now, what's your pick of the week?
I don't know. Like I probably Doctor Strange. No, I think
Strange.
I'm gonna say Batman actually.
Okay.
Surprisingly enough, because I picked up on a whim because it's such a light week and it was actually really good.
I don't
Who
believe
is-
you.
Who is who's writing Batman stories right now?
It's Zdarsky still, and he.
Okay.
I haven't been the biggest fan, but like every once in a while, I guess glimmers of good, greatness, and this is a glimmer of that. So I'm gonna have to.
Are
keep
you
reading it
telling
now.
me? Are you telling me you missed the good days of King? Like
No,
the wedding? Is it that's you really want to get back to those days?
not at all. It's like, I mean, I like Tynan's run. That was pretty good, but it's just like, I just want some good Batman. I don't know if we're gonna get that again, for a while.
I actually really liked that like 4 issues we've got of Williamson right
Yeah.
before Zdarsky took over. It's like, man, give me more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still have him up there. What I love about Williamson is he's a really great guy when he signs comics and he does little doodles, even though not an illustrator on all of his
Mhm.
stuff, puts a little flash emblem on stuff. I think he even does little Batman logos too, which is really great. So
That is cool. I
Yeah,
don't
he's a nice
think
guy.
I don't think I've met him yet.
You met him with
Casey, have we met him?
yeah, you met him with me one year because he was like, it just kind of popped up randomly at C2E2 and we ran into him and he autographed, or I just talked to him briefly because I didn't have any of his because he wasn't supposed to be there.
Hmm.
So he was really cool though, really nice.
Alex, we need to have a C2E2 hang out again.
I will totally travel to Chicago. We'll travel for con. I'll just say that. So we figure that out. I am totally fine to make a travel. My wife does girls trips for her like girls weekends and stuff. I will totally make mine like a con trip. So let's do it.
Excellent. Holding you to that.
Deal.
I can go next.
Do it.
I've played a couple games. Always snapping. Hercules comes out this week, so they're gonna drop him. He just seems kind of like a Mac card. We're not too worried about him. Kair has been doing pretty good. Been doing pretty well. Saving all the ones.
Hey, Preston, is
but
Hercules?
the
is
one issue
Hercules-
is
Hey, question.
the meta's getting kind of meh as far as it's the same like 2 or 3 decks I'm playing 90% of the time against. So like I always see a Thanos deck. I'll always see a high evolutionary deck. On occasion you get sprinkled in like a destroy deck or something like that. But it doesn't seem like there'd be a whole lot in the meta. So I'm kind of feeling meh. I'm just the average gameplay right now, but it'll change up. They'll drop a patch. They're dropping a patch tomorrow. It's supposed to change some shit. We'll see how much they fuck up the meta. So I'm super excited about that.
Is your Hercules a regular comic Hercules, or is it a Brett Goldstein Hercules from the Thor movie, like the cameo?
It'll probably be just the regular classic Hercules. They might have a variant card that might be Brett Goldstein. That'd be cool. But no, I did get a sweet high evolutionary variant because they started doing variants to where it actually looks like a page of a comic. So I got a high evolutionary one of that. I like that one a lot. But yeah, Snap's good. Snap's always good. And I finished Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower is very fun. Enjoyed it. Finished just south of 10 hours to play it. If you guys from the Two Worlds have ever played the old Wario games, like on the Game Boy, it's a lot like that, except you play Mr. Peppino. He's in this weird fantasy world of pizza stuffs because he owns his own pizza place, and he's climbing the pizza tower to get to the very end to fight the bosses. There is literally like just a ripoff of the Noid. They call him the Noise, but he looks exactly like the Noid from Domino's. But very last boss is very hard. You fight him phase 1, phase 2, and then all of a sudden he tosses all the bosses at you. You got to go with one at a time. But rather than hitting them 8 times a piece, what you're doing is he goes into like JoJo mode. So you get him stunned, you hit him, and all of a sudden he's like, ah, you see a half the health bar go down. I'm like, yeah, it felt pretty good going through those. But if you mess up at all during any of that entire long boss battle, start it all over again. I'm like, so it took me about a good hour or so last night to beat that boss, but it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it a lot. It would not have cracked my top 10 from last year, but it's still pretty good. But yeah, other than that, like Alex, I've been kind of catch up with my shows, caught up with Monarch now, things of that nature. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Echo comes out tomorrow, so I'm super stoked. I got the day off tomorrow, so I will be enjoying the Echo show. And it's I heard a cool little tidbit to where the main character, the main girl, the actress lady who plays Echo, she's Choctaw. I forget the tribe's name, but they actually have a dub for that language in the show that they're putting on Disney Plus. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's my week.
I heard they're dropping all episodes at once too, like all 5.
Are they? I thought they were just doing just 2, but yeah, if they do all 5, cool.
Yeah,
heard a rumor.
because
I don't know
they
if that's
have
true.
no faith in it,
Hey,
and they don't want to promote it. That's why.
Which
been
is
thinking about
insane.
Yeah, I know, because like everyone, at least at my shop, is like stoked for it.
yeah,
It's
good.
it's worrisome for me because within the MCU, you're creating this greater Daredevil universe, and you bought, Netflix's Daredevil, and you brought over the best Kingpin we've seen, and you brought over the best Matt Murdock we've seen like in a live action, but you don't seem to care about the things going on around Daredevil, which does not make it promising for me for the actual like return to form that Netflix did with that. So that's worrisome because the final season of that show was incredible.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, Malik. Wanna go, Jake?
You go,
Jake, why don't
Jake,
you
or
go-
you want to go?
Sure, I can go. I do play video games.
Hey.
So I've been playing Halo and Apex like I do every week.
Punching myself.
Yeah. Well, that week of Christmas when Alex had some time to play, we got a lot of good playtime there, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah. The randoms, now that I'm back to randoms, it's like, ugh, take me back. Take me back way back when. So yeah, I beat the Pokemon Scarlet DLC like a week or so ago. I know I texted you guys about that.
Yeah.
So the my little TBR that I have is Sonic Origins Plus, Sonic Frontiers, because I got that for Christmas. And then I just started a first time playthrough of Pokemon Black on the 3DS. And
I've still
that's
never
been
played
pretty
those.
awesome so far. And then Disco Elysium as well. Like those are my little stack of games. So
Who's your new
That's what I've
Pokemon
got.
roster?
who is my Pokemon roster?
Yeah, your current one for the new. gen.
So
team.
let's see. I've
Go
only
team.
done 2 gyms, so I'm still really early on, but I've got Servine because I chose Snivy to start. And then I've got a Panpour and a Pansage, a Sandile, a Blitzel, and a Timber. That's who I've got.
And you maybe
I-
one or 2 of those.
I'm only going to keep 2 of them. The others are just placeholders until I find someone else
Fill
that I
up, yeah.
want.
You guys are gonna kill me, but I have like resident Pokemon experts here, and I'm no Pokemon expert by any means. So when it comes to like what makes these games better than others, is it the story or is it like because each one I know oftentimes changes location? Is it location in the roster? Like
Can
I
oh
think
look.
with,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think with Black, like Heart Gold and Soul Silver are my favorite Pokemon games, but I think like with Black, it added a couple of new features that I thought was really cool. Like there's tall grass where you find Pokemon, but then there's extra tall grass where you can double battle wild Pokemon, which I think is pretty interesting. It also does a lot of just camera work that wasn't in previous Pokemon games. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool. And then there's like a ton of features that it talks about that I'm not going to use because this game is not in its prime and those services are not available anymore. But I'm sure they were cool back when the game was new.
So for like some of those older ones, this is just my opinion, but for some of those older ones, like Jake, like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black, like Ruby, Sapphire, like those ones are just genuinely good games. So like that's why people love them so much. Going forward, though, it's nostalgia. Nostalgia is what carries Game Freak to be able to keep making those games. Like there's like in a world in which cassette beasts exists, you're
That was
just
good.
like there's no reason that Game Freak, a company that has $1 bazillion, can't make a better video game. I don't. It's
but don't you see like what's the latest one? Purple or something.
Scarlet.
Whichever one.
Scarlet and Violet.
Scarlet. Okay. So, but with the new ones that come out, like I think, don't you still see like some are better received than others, or is each one literally going down a little bit, a little bit, and they're just coasting on nostalgia?
No, I don't think it's
No.
going down at all.
No, they keep selling the same amount because people are showing up and buying
Okay.
it. But now, whether or not, if you're asking like, does the quality of games go down? Yes, like they release games in states that they should not be released in.
They're improvements,
but-
but buggy as fuck. Yeah.
Like when I don't know how Scarlet is now. Jake can probably speak to that since he finished it. But when it launched, it was like there was videos of people being like, "Here's my game running it under 5 FPS, like just constantly." And you're like, "This is." If any other game launched like this, it would get ripped apart. But everyone's just like, "That it's all right. It's Pokemon." And I'm not even talking shit because I am absolutely one of those people that Scarlet and Violet is the first one that I didn't buy, but it's before that I was just like, yeah, I'll buy it. Who cares?
Yeah, it improved a little bit from the beginning, but not by much, honestly. However, the DLC was so much fun that I was like, whatever. Frames are going to drop every now and then, but this is a ton of fun, so I'm still really enjoying it. The only thing I will say that I don't like is every game that comes out is easier than the previous one.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, like in Black, I've spent a couple hours grinding my team to get up to level to fight the next gym, and you don't have to do that in the new ones. It's like if you, wherever you go, you're probably gonna one shot whatever's there. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I picked up and beat. I know this isn't the classic traditional Pokemon, but I always say this wrong, Christian. Arceus, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, somebody
That was
that,
a
like,
great
never.
game.
That was the first one I
Yes.
picked up in a long time, and I rolled to the end and actually completed it without like much grinding at all. Right? And you're talking to like somebody that doesn't even know Pokemon, and I was able to do that in no time. So,
But see, I think that one gets a little bit of a pass because everything else about that game was vastly different from any other Pokemon that you've ever played. And I wish I could go back to that, like playing that game for the first time, because I think that game's a masterpiece.
Whatever the next Pokemon game is supposed to be that team's game. So whatever the next one is should be theirs. It'll be
Good.
interesting to see what they cook up next.
Yeah. Other than games, I haven't really watched anything. I'm always reading novels and comics. I think this week a lot of good stuff came out. There was Birds of Prey and Vengeance of Moon Knight and Doctor Strange and Sonic. So it was a really good week for comics, even though there wasn't too much out. And then I've got a novel that I'm reading on my Kindle, a novel I'm reading in physical book form, and a novel that I'm listening to on Audible. So I've got a lot going on.
what are your
reading.
novels?
So I'm reading the second book in the Lives of Locke Lamora, the Gentleman Bastard series. I finished that first one last year and really liked it. Physical book, it's called The First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Everyone online is talking up that series, and I finally dove into that. And then the Audible book is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is sort of like it's like the thing right now. It's like the Twilight or the Harry Potter that everybody's reading. So I jumped on the bandwagon, and
I read those because Allie read those, so I had to read them too.
I was gonna ask if she had, because it seemed like something that she would enjoy, and
Yeah.
I think it's fine. Like there's some slow parts and some really good parts, but I'm only like 5 hours into the 15-hour listening time, so we'll see where it goes. But so far, so good.
As a fantasy fan, have you read King's Dark Tidings series? It's not finished. It's a really, really good one. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but check it out. I think they just put out, I read it earlier this year, I guess later last year. I think it was book 4, maybe. And it's not finished yet, unfortunately, because publishers are publishers. They're making the author write a side story, like a greater universe story, before he can contractually go back and finish the King's Dark Tiding, which is kind of lame. But you like fantasy, it's a good one to check out. It's got a lot of high fantasy. There's a lot of lore to the world. It's good.
I'll add it to my list. That's it for me.
Yeah, so for me, I'm trying to think. So I have 2 games I'm playing right now. I'm playing Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. And for those who don't know, the easy sell on it is that it's basically like Warhammer 40K's version of Baldur's Gate 3. So if you're into the universe of Baldur's Gate at all, they do the same. It's a CRPG, so it has a massive amount of story, tons of lore. It does everything that you would want it to do. But all decisions, things. The main point of it is that you're not, because I guess I don't know. I'm not like a huge Warhammer has always been this thing that like I have always admired by how cool it looks, but I've never actually been able to like break into it at all. And so I guess all of the factions in that universe are very like siloed, like they do not interact with each other that much at all. But the Rogue Trader is essentially like a pirate that, like, for the good of the Empire or the God Emperor or whatever, is able to like go and do things with other civilizations as long as it means that they bring something back that like benefits the greater empire, I guess. So far it's been really cool. The only thing that I would say is if you're going in like when I first picked it up, it was people selling it as like Warhammer Baldur's Gate 3, which I was super into. I would say that it's closer to all of Larian's other games and not Baldur's Gate 3 specifically, because Baldur's Gate 3 like does a focus on story by like when you're talking to somebody, like giving you like the old like BioWare view, like two people talking to each other kind of thing, whereas all of their other games were all still top down while you're still talking to somebody and like a text box shows up and it's voice acting the whole thing. That's what this is. So it's closer to all of the older CRPGs as opposed to Baldur's Gate 3, but the storytelling is still at the same level so far. And then the other thing that I've played is so a massive update went out to a game that I had tried a little while ago and I didn't like very much. And they fixed all of my problems with it, so I went back and tried it. So I've been playing Lies of P, which is basically like Pinocchio Bloodborne. And it's very good now. And maybe we'll have more to say about that later, as far as a topic is concerned for our half of the thing. But yeah, so I've been playing that. I'm like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 hours into it. It's been very good so far. That's it. And then I obviously read the book that we're all here to talk about.
He saw something else too. He did watch a movie he only seen for the first time.
Oh, I did. Yeah. So our baby boy Preston turned 21 this weekend, and he was during, I don't remember when it was a couple of weeks ago now, but at some point I just casually mentioned to him that I had never seen Ghostbusters before. I'd always seen parts of it, but I'd never seen like the full movie. And he was offended. He was mad at me. And so for his birthday, he was like, all I want to do is get dinner and watch Ghostbusters. And I was like, all right, let's let it rip, dude. So we did that. It was a good movie. Totally held up. It was
talking about the
a
good
very
one with the
movie.
girls, right?
Yes. Yeah,
You guys should have told me you were doing that, because Allie has only seen the second one. She's never seen the first one. And I would have totally, in spirit, watched it on the same night rather than doing what we were going to do, which is go out to our Remember the 6th rally. So we would have totally just watched that instead.
Yeah. Oh God, I totally forgot that.
I'm trying to get people to forget.
Man,
it's my
no.
birthday.
Okay, first of all,
Not
I
for that day.
didn't forget about that event. I forgot that for whatever, I forgot the whole story of the day that happened. Alex and I are talking about it, and we're like, this is fucking crazy, blah blah blah. And Preston goes, I'm just so mad this is going to overshadow my birthday. And I remember
Fuck 'em.
Alex and I were like, that's not really the thing I don't know if we want to be taken away from today. But that's but yeah, no, the movie totally held up. All the practical effects were like still the only thing that you ever notice when you're like, woof, is when they needed some of the ghosts to like, not be practical effects anymore and be CG and move. It was a little rough, but
I'm pretty sure that's not still CG. I'm pretty sure that's like them like just like using like puppets or like some type of stop motion and then like just putting it into the mirror. That's why you see that weird like line around it almost. it kind of transposes into it. But like when the dog is running like in the streets and stuff like that, you can kind of see like when he's running out of the hotel, for example, one of the Zool dogs, and he goes to dogs. He comes out of the thing, and you can tell that wasn't there when they filmed it, and it's definitely not CG. But I could be wrong. But I know around that time is when they started to try to use CG. I forget what year Tron came out, but a lot of movies back then didn't really use a whole lot of CG. For example, the Ghostbusters like streams, like those are like hand animated. I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know how many of you guys have been to like Disney World and been in like the haunted mansion, but there's one room where you're above a dance hall and you see ghosts dancing. And what they've done is they have like mannequins below where you can't see, and they're using lighting and mirrors to make them appear with the glass. Like I guess the mirror reflecting off the glass. Anyway, I think they did some of that too, right? So you get that like transparent look, but it's practical. I guess
whatever that was, whatever it was they did was the only part of the movie that you're like, woof, that doesn't look very good. But
everything else was good.
Other than that, it was perfect. It looked great. It was a good movie.
Good.
You're a man
Well,
now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If that's everything,
21.
I say if that's everything, then Jake, I think you can take us through what we all read together.
Oh.
Sure. So we all read, I think we've said the full title like 3 times now, but it's Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck in Les Miserables and War and Peace by Giovan Battista Carpi. Pretty nice hardcover. It's there's the cover if we got any watchers.
Extremely nice.
Yeah.
The pages
nice
are
hardcover.
thick too.
Yeah. Really nice
pages
quality.
so many times.
Before we get into it, I just want to say in general, the art and the colors are just a joy in this book.
So, that's what I was going to say. I don't want to get too far into what we liked, blah, 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 but like that is for every page, I was like, man, this is just a joy to look at. Like it just takes you back for one, but then two, like you're just looking and it's like, this is just beautifully drawn. Like there's just no problems with any of this.
I agree.
One thing I want to say too is like, this is $30. And if this was a Marvel or a DC like book, they don't make anything this good of quality. Like even the omnibuses that are like the thick, they're not this good of quality. The pages don't feel as good, and then you'd also be spending like $50. Like it's
easy.
Insane.
Yeah, they put out some doozies for much more money. That's for sure.
Apparently this is like, if you're reading on the first couple pages too, it's like a big series they've done. Now there weren't as many like just classics, if you will, like this, but it does seem to be like a quite a large series of different stories they've done like this.
It has. I went and looked up a couple of the others, and I don't remember what they were offhand. Nothing as crazy as this, or like not crazy, but I don't know, classic as this, I guess. Not that I'm some, but literary nerd that knows what a classic is. I'm sure that they've done plenty, but nothing that me, a casual, is like, oh, I know what that is.
I think it's a shame though, because I would love to read Uncle Scrooge's version of All Quiet on the Western Front or something like crazy shit like that.
Never say never.
The Lord of Flies.
Right.
All right. Well, we can get into the first half, which is Les Mis, and just let's just go around just a brief before we deep dive. Did you like it? Casey, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of exactly what I expected, but it's still, it's good quality and just enjoyable. It was a quick read. Yeah,
Alex?
I was worried it was gonna be a slog.
Yes and no, which I think it's a little bit of my expectations letting me down, which is I was hoping, and I don't know why I would expect this given it's Uncle Scrooge, but like I was really hoping they would follow Les Mis to completion and we deviate a bit in the
Phrasing.
third act. I know. We deviate a bit in the third chapter, and we'll talk about that as we go through this on like some of the things we missed out on. And as we talk about it, I just imagine what we could have seen in this comical art form, and what we missed out on. So I did enjoy it for what it was. I was disappointed for what we missed.
Yeah, because I've not seen the movie, but I know they shave Anne Hathaway's head. So like, whose feathers would they have plucked out?
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway is tragic. I did learn something though about this. I didn't know that I always thought Les Mis was like the miserable ones, which you would think like Les Miserables, miserable. It is not actually. It's the wretched ones. So there's that, if you will. But yeah, we'll like I said, we'll talk about it. I've read, watched, heard, listened, seen all versions of Les Mis, so I'll share what I can.
All right, Preston.
I liked it. I wasn't sure about how good the writing would be. I've never been into Les Miserables or The War and Peace, but
I was waiting for him to be like Les Miserables.
Les Miserables. I've never read those. I'm aware that there was a movie made. I'm kind of curious to actually watch the movie now. But I hear it's very musical-like, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. So I'll see if it's streaming on something, and I'll put it on while I'm playing something on Steam Deck.
There is a non-musical version, if you would like. It was actually a made-for-TV movie quite a long time ago, and it's actually the one I grew up with because it's what they would actually show in school. The musical version, though, is actually very, very good. If you want,
Well, I'm sure it is. Yeah, I'll put it on the background. It's fine.
Can I just say that's mind blowing that a school in the middle of Coal Town, Virginia,
West
was
Virginia.
showing. Excuse me, I apologize. They're very different. Yeah, have you been there? They're not. Anyway, and so I cannot believe that that's what they were showing in your. That's wild.
That's because
We need to
that's
get these
because
kids some culture, man.
So first of all, just so listeners know, though West Virginia is bumpkin, we've talked about it on the pod, and I've been honest with that. We were Blue Ribbon, and we were not in Coal Town. I do not live in Coal Town. That's why I don't sound like I'm from West Virginia.
Well, Travis says otherwise.
Travis grew up. I think Travis grew up technically in Ohio, so he has nothing to say.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Like you guys said, the color and everything like that is pretty good on here. I had to look up a lot of words. I'm a big dummy. Like I'll explain myself. I'm a big dummy all the time. But like, there's words that like just aren't used a whole lot nowadays. Like I pulled up one of them, Nooge, Noodge, when she's yelling at
Nooge?
Daisette. A Nooge. I've never heard of someone calling someone a Nooge. And I looked that up. I'm like, is she being racist as shit right now? I'm like looking at it like, okay, no, it's just like, okay.
Preston
about-
reads it. He goes, Nooge, I don't know this newfangled French. And you Google it. It's like, yeah, what school kids call each other on the playground.
Yeah,
I was
I'm
waiting
like,
for them to be like, is Ted Nugent in this? Is somebody talking
The
about Ted
Nooge.
Nugent?
But yeah, it's all good. It's all fun. I liked it. Enjoyed it.
Nice. Christian.
So I guess Alex saying that it doesn't all the way finish sort of makes
Mhm.
sense. I thought it was fine. Like I of the two, I liked War and Peace a lot better. So
Agreed.
that sort of makes sense, I guess, that if I was missing things or it wasn't the full story, then I guess that kind of explains it. Not that it was bad by any means. I mean, like I'm holding it, like I do think it was really fun. I liked at the very end when it like cuts to like, you know, Scrooge basically closing the book and looking at the game, being like, and that's all, folks. And then like everybody's just like walking home, and it's like it was just like a little story time that they had. I really liked that touch. But yeah, I thought it was fine.
I did appreciate that, like in Les Mis, they deal a lot with poverty and classism and other things, and we'll talk about this more. But like, I appreciate the sole basis of like why he was telling the story of like Les Mis as Scrooge was because the tax man was gonna up his tax like $5 a month, and he's like, I don't want to pay any more money. So it really had nothing to do with like the poverty piece, and it was just like have to keep my monies. It's like these
The penny
things.
pincher.
I
Would rather
know
run from the law.
it fits the character, doesn't quite fit the goal of the story though. So
Right. Well, Alex, if you don't mind, since you are, we'll say the resident expert on the story,
sure.
why don't you just kind of hit some of the highlights of the story and maybe some differences or common things that you
Yeah,
liked.
absolutely. So I appreciate the naming convention. So the story of Les Mis centers around quite a few characters, but one of the first ones that you meet and is around the longest is Jean Valjean, who we know as Jean McJean, right? So Scrooge McDuck taking over the main character's role. And what happens is, like the actual story, Jean Valjean or Jean McJean grows up as a poor kid, steals a loaf of bread, ends up getting caught by this really a-hole of a police officer, Javert, which was named the same in the story, and gets put in prison. And Jean McJean says, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm a young kid. It's a dumb reason to go to prison for stealing a loaf of bread and trying to eat. So he tries to escape many times, and he gets caught every time. And he inevitably serves 18 years in prison before he escapes for real. And that was actually the same between Les Mis and this book. And I thought they did it really well. I just the passing of time and stuff with the, again, we talked about the art, like the artwork is incredible. It's really easy to follow the story. But I thought that was really interesting. So when Jean McJean gets out of prison, he runs to a town. I know it's ridiculous. I have to say, keep saying
It gets me every time, man.
It was really funny. But when he does escape, he goes to a I'm trying to think of the way they did this first. He goes to a local town, and he really kind of becomes friends with a bishop who gives him some candlesticks. Like, essentially, he's friends with the bishop, and he's like, my old ways are taking over. I'm going to steal all the silver in this guy's house. And he does, and he leaves, and he gets caught by the local police again. They take him back to the bishop's house, and the bishop says, hey, he didn't steal that. I gave everything to him. In fact, he forgot these 2 candlesticks. So he gives him the 2 candlesticks, and the police are like, okay, well, let's let him go. And Jean McJean is so happy that the bishop did this. He's like, I am going to turn my life around. I'm no longer just going to thief. I'm going to be a good person and look out for the poor people. That all is still true. Like in Les Mis, that's exactly what happens in the whole thing. Now, as this is happening, we are introduced, and forgive me if anybody speaks French, I'm going to butcher names, but
It's just Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
not yet. We're not there yet. The Thénardiers, and they are criminals that own a pub. And in this pub, they essentially regale people of stories about the war with Napoleon, and then they rob them, which they plan on doing to Jean McJean. And there's a little orphan who's been taken in by this family named Daisette. In Les Mis, her name is Cosette. So they, made it pretty good there. And she says, hey, don't go to sleep. Don't eat their food. They're going to knock you out. They're going to steal all of your stuff. And he's like, hey, I have this fortune. Oh my gosh. Thank you for telling me. So Jean McJean and Daisette escape in the night, and they make their way to another town where he uses his money to start up a glass factory and really becomes so beloved, taking care of the poor. He becomes mayor. Again, all of this holds completely true to Les Mis, which is kind of bonks. There's some other back stuff with the Thénardiers that I'm not going to get into. I will tell you how their story ends, the part that we missed out on, which is really good. But they're just some really terrible people. And in Les Mis, their story crosses with everybody a bunch. So like this story, they do leave and they go to Paris for different reasons, though. They have 3 kids. One of their kids is the Anne Hathaway character that you guys know shaves her head, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. but they are very intertwined with Les Mis. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of I'm sorry, I'll say this, and this brings us to the end, I think, of chapter 1. So as he is mayor of the town, Javert has always been angry that he's never been able to catch Jean Valjean from escaping. And he was like, hey, I'm going to go travel the countryside to try and find him. He runs into this person with a different name in this town as mayor. And he goes, you remind me of somebody. And this is where things diverge a little bit. So essentially, Jean Valjean is like, I can't be here anymore. I got to leave. And he and Cosette, Dezette flee to Paris. What happens in Les Mis, similar but different. Javert is going to arrest somebody else for thievery, and to save this poor person, this poor character, Jean Valjean comes out and says, Javert, it's me you've been looking for. Imprison me. And before he can be imprisoned, they escape to Paris. So there's a little divergence there. But that brings us to the end of chapter 1. Essentially, that's the story of how they get to Paris. And really, the main characters we're going to follow: Jean Valjean, Dezette, the Thénardiers, which are in it, and then Javert. So I'll pause here, like we do our book clubs. And Jake, I'll pass it back over to you and kind of get your takes on the first chapter.
Yeah. Well, that was a much better leading of the book club than I could have done. So thank you for that. Really, I don't have too much to comment on this first chapter, but I do want to say I love the language, like the Disney-fied language that they use, like
That's what I was going to say.
Pete's character, just talks like he normally would. And I think that's just funny. Also, it kills me how horses are portrayed in these Disney comics and old cartoons, because they just look so dumb.
In War and Peace.
They look so dumb. Like, limbs are going everywhere. They're so over exaggerated. It cracks me up. But that's pretty much it for me on this first chapter. If somebody else would like to comment.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I have the same thing, except I don't actually I love the over exaggerated sort of animation style and drawing that they did back then. Like, that's why I think, like, not to bring it back to video, but like Cuphead is such a cool is like, because of just the way they draw that stuff. Like, I think that's why it works so well.
It holds up.
Yeah, it's I would say it's more than holds. It's just like timeless. Like, you just never gets bored. I never get bored looking at any of the stuff. And yeah, that was I think the language thing of them sort of Disneyfying sort of all the different pieces, like, not that it was a hard read to begin with, but it was like, it makes it more approachable in a way that's like, oh, it's more fun to read this, because now as I'm going through and meeting new characters, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see how, blank character is going to be portrayed by whoever, like, and how they're going to do it. So yeah, I thought it worked. It was great.
Anyone else? Okay.
So in chapter 2, we've made our way to Paris, where all of our characters converge in Paris. So the Thénardiers and Javert. The reason the Thénardiers come is because in this story, which is unique to this one and how they got their characters to converge, the candlesticks were actually Napoleon's prize candlesticks. Nobody knows why, but I guess we learned it later. But essentially, the Thénardiers he was in the war. Napoleon's treasurer was taking the horse and the treasure hoard away, wrecks it. They steal the candlesticks. Then to get money, he pawns the candlesticks. The pawn owner sells those candlesticks to the bishop, and then that's like how they end up with Jean Valjean. But the treasurer says, hey, I want my candlesticks back. So then they go on this tour to Paris to try and get the candlesticks back from Jean Valjean. When we're there, we're introduced to another character, and I forget what they call him. Is it Donaldus Duck Mercy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're introduced to Donaldus Duck Mercy, who is a big character in Les Mis. I believe it's Marius. Goodness, I'm gonna Pontmercy is what it is. And essentially, that is the love interest of Dazette. And he comes from a poor family. She is obviously rich. So it's this like troubled love because rich versus poor. And Jean McJohn hates him because he's a poet and he can't provide for himself. But that is the main love interest here in Love Story. We're also introduced to Hugh Rocher, Duve Rocher, and Lou Rocher, which are Huey, Dewey, and Louie. I love how they did that. They're actually three people that represent one character, Gav Rocher. And Gav Rocher is the best friend of Marius Pontmercy, or Donaldus Duck Mercy, and they are young students. Not happy with the way young people have been treated in Paris. They go on to lead a small revolt against the Parisian government that leads to a massacre. That was not part of the story. Again,
I wish
one of
it
those.
were.
There are some things after we get talk about chapter 3. There are some things that like I wish were in this, and we're absolutely not. So we'll kind of cover both chapters 2 and 3 because they're kind of quick ones with the love story. To get the candlesticks back, Thénardier and the treasurer partner up with an underground sewer gang, and they're like, let's kidnap Dazette. They kidnap Dazette and they tell everybody else, Jean McJohn and Duck Mercy and everyone, say, hey, if you want her back, give us the candlesticks. And essentially that's what they do. But they find that these candlesticks are not only prized Napoleon candlesticks, but they're the answers or keys to a puzzle that leads to Charlemagne's lost treasure. This is definitely not in Les Mis. So they go through the sewers where Dazette is. They try and rescue her. They also find out that Charlemagne's lost treasure is down there. But oh no, what's going to happen? Javert has crafted a plan, which is we're going to flood these sewers and we're going to run these people out of the pipes like rats, and we're going to arrest them all as they come out. And that is the plan. But while everybody else runs out and gets arrested, the heroes find some of the treasure and then kind of lose some of the treasure. And when they come out, Javert is happy, I guess, with how he helped him catch bad guys, and they were trying to rescue Dazette and doing things for the right reason, that he says, you know what, Jean McJohn, I'm done with chasing you. You're a free man. And that is our story of Les Mis, told by Uncle Scrooge.
So one
Just
thing
incredible.
One thing that I took note of here, the Beagle Meuniers.
Eagle Boys.
They're having a meeting, and there's a big sign that says "Big Fat Meeting of Beagle Meuniers Inc." And then they try to spell itinerary, and we get itten, itinera, and they scratch out both of them and write agenda. And that really tickled me. Like, I laughed out loud.
Yeah, I noticed
Super
that
funny.
too. It's very good.
Good jokes in this book.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
here's what I'll say about, like, I thought the story as a whole was handled well, right? And clearly they did what they needed to do for the type of story and audience they had. But let me just give you a couple of things that like happen in Les Mis and tell me how much better this book could have been. So really quick, one of the first ones is Marius has this really good female friend, and whose name I am of course going to forget unless I happen to write it down, which I don't. Eponine. So he has this really good female friend, Eponine. She loves Marius, but Marius loves Cosette, right? Now, what happens is people are trying to steal Marius's or Cosette's money from her family, much like they're trying to do in this one. They're trying to get Scrooge McDuck's money. But she essentially stops her family and the Thénardiers from stealing that money. So they cast her out. So she has nowhere to go. That is Anne Hathaway's character, how she ends up in like the streets prostituting herself and eventually sells teeth like that she pulls her teeth out and sells teeth. And the way she ends up dying is during this revolt that Gavershé and Marius are having with all these students. She tricks him into going. And she tricks him into going because she wants him to die, but she knows she's about to die from like exposure and starvation. So she wants to be there, die with him and die before him and profess her love. So they die together. Unfortunately, she also ends up saving him at the revolt. She dies. Literally everyone else dies. And he's the only one that survives. So that's like one thing that happens. The other thing,
I see why
So-
they left that out.
Thank you. I was about to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
I was like, I'm not. After he's describing this, I'm like, all of this sounds like something that Disney would look at and go, "Yeah, you try to put that in, we're canceling this whole fucking book."
yeah. So then from there is Jean Valjean, Jean McJean, finds Marius, who's been knocked out at the revolt but not dead. He picks him up and he carries him through the sewer. So the sewers piece is kind of there. But Javert is waiting for them as they come out of the sewers. So when he comes out of the sewers, essentially Jean Valjean tells Javert, he's like, look, you've got me. I can't run anymore. This is everything's going on. He's like, but this kid's going to die. Let me get him help and I will turn myself in 3 days. Like, I promise this is where I'm going. I'll turn myself in. And Javert is like, I see what you're doing. You're doing this for the right reason. That's fine. Like, come turn yourself in. You're old, whatever. So after Jean Valjean leaves, right then and there, like on this bridge, when he comes out of the sewer, Javert has this big struggle between like morality and duty. And he's like, he's doing the right thing, but I have this duty of this criminal and I've lived this whole life chasing him down, so on. And he can't process it. So he throws himself into the Seine, into the river, and he drowns. So he just commits suicide on that. And then
Of course,
Yeah.
they didn't have them throw a
Right.
duck off a bridge and drown and die.
Sure, he was a crow. But then so Cosette and Marius, they actually fall out of favor with Jean Valjean, I guess the other way around, because they find out that Jean Valjean was a lifelong criminal and they kind of banish him. Towards the end, they make amends and he tells Cosette about her mom and how he did everything for them, and like he ends up dying like in front of them, so on. But the last thing is those Thénardiers, they do actually get a little bit of money, the criminals that they are, and they flee to America. And when they flee to America, they become slave traders. So there you go, everybody.
Now
There-
that is something that Disney totally could have included, because they were all about that. So
No, that's why I say, like, I think I really enjoyed this for what it was, but I was let down by my own expectations, and I don't know why I expected to cover the
Yeah, I don't
gamut
know
of Les
either.
Mis, but I was very excited to read like Les Mis with this like fun animation. So I was let down because I
look
was
at
like,
this cutesy drawing of somebody drowning. That's
if we're gonna do it, let's do it, man. That's all I'm saying. It's a very important work from French literature. If we're gonna do it, let's do it. So that was Les Mis.
Real quick. So the Beagle Minettes, the Beagle Boys.
Mhm.
I have very vivid recollection of the oldest nightmare I've ever had. When I was like 3, 4, 5, somewhere around there. I remember the house I was living in, so it's around that era. I had a nightmare of the Beagle Boys chasing after me with the striped shirts, like green hat, everything like that. Like, I had a nightmare of that, and it's stuck with me ever since. And I saw them, I'm like, those fuckers, I haven't seen these guys in forever. Oh fuck.
And Preston hasn't slept in 3 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
it's like, then I calmly close the book and I have made a therapy appointment. So I'm gonna be digging
Donating
into
this
that.
one. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
That's great.
All right. Any other comments on this one?
One of my favorite things to do is every time Donald, like you were doing the Donaldus character, reading his parts, I would read it like Donald with the
voice, yeah.
like that. And instead, it made it a lot more fun.
Yeah,
Having Scrooge do a Scottish
So that's what I
voice.
was-
that-
yeah,
every time
I
about
can't
French
do a
shit, I'm
Scottish
like,
voice.
Jesus.
in my head, because I'm so familiar
Scrooge.
with, like, a lot of these characters, and you had obviously like all the cartoons and games that Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie have been in, and all that stuff. So they all have, like, when I was reading through, if they were on the page, there though that was definitely the voices that I was
Duck
using, and so
voices,
it
yeah.
definitely entertained me more going through some of this story for sure.
It was interesting that like the only one they tried to make French was Javert, like
yeah,
the
he did the
sheriff.
Z's.
Mhm.
And I don't recall that Crow being French, and I'm trying to like find scenes because I know when they were talking about the plan.
No,
But just
because
yeah, they wrote him blasted commissary. You're right. Those rogues are everywhere, and the sweepers keep them safe. Like
so I think they wrote them like that because, and this correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those crows back in the day were overtly racist. And so it was probably easier just to make them French instead of, basically like trying to pretend to be
The
African
voices
American.
of those crows. Yeah.
Yeah.
they didn't want the voice in your head as you were reading it, so they're like,
Yeah.
we'll purposely write like the
Yeah.
accent. Okay.
Which
I'll
honestly
say-
could save.
One thing I'll say before we move on to War and Peace, maybe it's just me, but I don't know if I would like to see this actually animated. I don't think it would hit as well as what this comic did. I don't know if that makes sense.
I could see that.
I could still see it being really good though, because have you seen the Christmas Carol that they did?
That
one's
one's pretty good.
That
Yeah.
one's good. So like I could see them actually making it good.
Right.
You would have
Back
to make
then.
it faster, like speed up the pacing. But the third chapter, I think, would be great with the chase scene across the rooftop of Paris, and then like the rescue in the sewers. I think would be fantastic.
Yeah.
They really do pull out all the stops in a lot of these drawings though. Like they every panel they sell so well. It is incredibly well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
do think
I love all the cross hatching and stuff like that for shading. It's
Mhm.
really good.
I also just think it's funny how quick Donald and Daisy fall in love in both stories. It's like y'all just met and you're already
Yeah.
I don't know. This isn't. I'm kind of on Scrooge's
Love at
side
first
here.
They're just dumb kids.
Yeah.
She hears him reciting poetry and singing, and that's what you get with like horny 16-year-olds. That's it.
Yeah, but with that voice, come on.
All right. Well, then I guess we can move on to War and Peace. Alex, I'm gonna hand it back. You're knocking it out of the park.
Okay. Well, the problem here is I did not write down names, but that's fine. Because the Russian names are harder. And I think, again, I haven't read War and Peace. War and Peace has like, this is no
It's like-
exaggeration.
It's like 600 characters.
Yeah, it has like 500 characters or something in it. But I also believe
It's like 1,200 pages long.
Anastasia Romanoff and people are in it. And I think by some of the names, like they allude to the Romanovs, but they're
Yeah.
not straight up the Romanovs. So we'll just use Scrooge and Donald and stuff. We'll tell the story. So
But Mick Duxikov is hilarious.
I think
Mick Duxikov.
I think they
Yeah.
get close to Anis with yeah. That's for Daisy. That's why I knew it was Ductasia Rostov.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like a
Rostova.
Romanov thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Rostova, yeah. So anyway, I didn't make notes on this one because I hadn't read it. So with this, we are later in French and Russian history. We are at the height of the czars, and Russia is in a bit of turmoil where they have the rich with a ton of wealth and the poor who are very, very poor, and they keep taxing the poor and giving money to the czars. So they're on the verge of their own revolt. And during this time, Napoleon thinks it would be a great opportunity to capture more land for his empire. So he decides to go take Moscow. And that's what we have here. Now, Scrooge McDuck is a very wealthy man in this Tsarist Russia with a
Yeah,
destitute.
play back what you just said. It's just funny. Sorry, it's funny.
He's
Go
a
ahead.
very wealthy man in the Tsarist Russia.
Yeah, Uncle
Yeah.
Scrooge.
And I don't know the right word for his nephew. It's not like he's not destitute, but he is living off the money of his uncle, and he is kind of a loser, and he likes to sleep around. He likes to have fun at the nights, go out with the boys. Every day is Saturday, and Saturday's for the boys, sort of thing, right? And with war on their doorstep, Scrooge calls him back and to the house and says, "Hey, we need to hide this wealth before the Russian government comes in and takes this money and uses it to fund everything they need to do for this war, essentially leaving the Tsar to their own."
Really quick, I just want to say,
yeah.
it's like there's a thought that I can't get out of my head. The way you're describing Scrooge and then Donald Duck's like character, whatever. It's so funny to me that you're basically like, you tried really hard for Scrooge. You're like, yeah, so I'm painting a picture of him basically being a czar in Russia, and then for his nephew, you're like, and he's basically a character from the Jersey Shore. So just picture that and move on.
I mean, it's not far off. It's not far off. While he's home, Scrooge is like, "You're gonna have to get married," and Donald's like, I'm too much of a player, son. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You can't marry
Son.
me off right now." And Scrooge says, "We're gonna go to a ball. You're gonna introduce yourself to let me get, what'd you say? What do we say dates and Ductasia. It's Tasha. Ductasia Rostova. And you're gonna say, 'Hey, I want to marry you because her family is wealthy
Oh, it is.
and I am wealthy, and we are going to have immense wealth. We are going to start to unify the money here in Russia."
I'm sorry, but I have to correct you.
Yeah.
Ductasia is later. This one is Helen Quackarina.
Oh, you're right. Helen Quackarina is first. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're right.
Helene
Wrong
incredible.
page.
Rouge, but yeah.
I'm
Anyway.
looking at the right page. She's on the left. Helen Quackarina, which is the better name. So he goes and look, he doesn't. I actually had a problem with this. And again, I haven't read War and Peace. Maybe this is how the characters handle it. I'm sure it is, because Les Mis was pretty close. He goes and proposes or goes on a couple of dates, essentially, with Helen Quackarina. And she is all into it. He says she has a terrible attitude. I know, before I even go ask her, like, I hear she's hard to deal with. And from everything we see on the page, she seems very sweet and very in love. And he seems to be kind of the a-hole, which we've kind of talked about, so I get. But I feel like he didn't give her a good shake of things. And it wasn't until he was like, "I'm not going to marry you and you're a terrible singer," and so on, that then she turns kind of like cold and bitchy.
She went a
But I
little
think-
extra crazy sauce right at the very front start. Like, "Oh, we're getting married." He's like, "I didn't say anything about marriage." She's like, "Oh, I'm in love with you." He's like, "I just met you." Like, she's taking the crazy.
You're talking
pills.
about
I
19th
love-
century Russia. That's how people got married. It's you're wealthy, I'm wealthy, let's bang. Like, I don't understand the problem here.
Darude Sandstorm is playing at this ball that we're at, and
I love the debate on this Uncle Scrooge War and Peace already.
I know.
I will say the one thing they've
Preston's
done
over
with
here
War and
like,
Peace,
look, I'm just saying Quackery is kind of a bitch. As soon as I saw her.
wanna walk out
all
that
of
too.
the
Fuck that.
panels, all the panels in War and Peace have so much more going on. There's more
Yes,
characters, there's more stuff.
yep.
So
Yeah.
I will say, like, they absolutely nailed the
The costumes are
stuff.
so good.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna lie, Preston, you can back me up here. Helene Quackarina, especially on page 128 when they're at the dance, she looks pretty good.
She's stacked. Let's say it. She's
She looks
stacked.
good. She looks good.
I
Big
love
old
that
duck
you
titties.
looked. I love that you looked for Preston. Preston will back me up as the resident resident expert here. She's got it going on. Absolutely.
Little cuckoo for
Preston
the
and I
pop star.
agree. We agree a lot of times. I just,
We do.
you give him crap and I just stay quiet. But we typically agree. So
Dude, that's the biggest. You've told so many lies, and that is the biggest one you've ever told.
He's been quiet.
stay quiet. So anyway, it does not work out with Helene Quackarina. And essentially Scrooge says, "Look, Donald, I told you need to get married. If you don't get married, you're going to have to go work in the not the mines, but at the mill, essentially metalworking and other stuff in Siberia."
Yeah, it's a metalworking plant. Yeah.
Metalworking. And he does. And he goes and he makes cannonballs for the war. And this is when things get really bad. He finally goes back to Scrooge, and Scrooge says, "Look, I've come up with a plan to hide this wealth. with your knowledge and ability to make cannonballs, we're going to hide all of my gold in these cannonballs, and then we're going to ship them up to our mountain house. However, things don't quite go to plan because the Russian army, is on their doorstep, and they are at that metalworking facility, and they say, "Hey, we see all of these cannonballs. Let's get them to the front lines." And Donald, being the dotard that he is, just being lazy around the house, he told Scrooge he would take care of it. He did not take care of it, and they disappear right under his nose. They head to the front lines, and he doesn't do anything about it until Scrooge comes back, freaks out, and says, "Get my money back. Somebody's going to die in here tonight. It's not going to be me."
Real quick, I just want to point out the Tsar Cannon 1569 that
Dude,
shows
that
up.
got me so hard. Like it was fucking, it's giant. The thing is almost as big as bigger than the door. It
Yeah,
just pulls up. It's huge. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
it's so funny.
It is good, and it's not the only time it's used, right? It's used later when there is a gang, the side shenanigans going on. There is an escaped group of convicts that are also coming to steal Scrooge's wealth, and they also go to the door as like inspectors and are just met with that cannon right to the face, which is pretty fantastic. So also, can we say, by the way, if you hop to page 144, which is where they see the cannon, the illustrations of just the Russians are ridiculous, with like these hugely long beards, paunch stomachs, like the hats they're wearing,
Doing the
It's
dance.
Kicks. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it is so insane. But it's okay to make fun of Russia, apparently, so no big deal. No harm, no foul.
They have a couple of things coming, all right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. If you don't want to be made fun of, don't start a war in Ukraine. So anyway, we're back to this where the cannonballs have been stolen. They make their way to the front line, and honestly, I'll call out one thing before we get to the front line. But along the way, this is where Donald actually falls in love. On his way to the front line, he stops over and he meets. This was the one. This is the Anastasia one.
Natasha Rostova.
And not
Thank
just
you.
him, his horse as well.
That's
Horse
so
being a piece
that's what
too,
I
yeah.
wanted. That's what I wanted to call out. So Donald falls in love, but as does his horse, who falls in love. And there is a scene, and it might be before that actually. We've seen the horse.
Probably 155 fight, I guess. It's where the horse sees the female horse and just like
Yeah.
stopped dead in the tracks.
Yeah, there's two things this horse does. So on page 155, when he sees like the love, like his horse love, the animation is insane. The illustration is insane, where he's like now personified with his front legs as arms and his back legs. He's like running and like jumping in the air. But before we even get there, and I'm not going to find the page, the horse is daydreaming, being lazy, and as he's pulling these heavy cannons, he's daydreaming of being on a beach on his back on a beach chair, being served by like this busty blonde. And I just want to know, like, what is this horse human relationship? Like, in order to have these thoughts, this horse had to have taken a beach vacation in Russia, and he had to have had a type, which is apparently like 1960s bombshell, right?
I think, Alex, that there is a little show that Preston has watched that I think would be able to give you the insight on this crazy love thing that you found. And I bet you will be able to more understand the logic of everything if you had watched Beastars like Preston has.
The page is 126, top left corner.
Yeah. Thank you for finding that, Jake. Just I saw this, and it's the one thing in this book that's kind of like out of time, right, with everything else going on. So it stood out to me, but it just made me think, like, what's this horse doing in his free time? What's going on? What are we trying to say here?
He's Scrooge's
was-
horse. You know, you don't know what Scrooge, like guys with money, are into.
So
True. Bored.
apparently this horse fucks is what we're saying.
He could have been on Epstein's Island. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's
See,
there's
that's
a
one.
sailboat in the background. Like, what? It's just so
See?
out of time with the rest of the story.
One thing I think is funny, like the only like one of the few like classic things in Russia that I know about is Rasputin, and the horse's name is Rasputin, and like
Yes.
Rasputin,
Yeah.
like the thing, like big thing to know about him is big old wiener, and he was horny. This horse is hung like a horse, and it wants to fuck.
So
So
we're
you
just
gotta
saying Rasputin
appreciate it.
fucks.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. The attention
Honestly,
to detail.
that I was gonna say that is a callback that you know they did on purpose, and I'll give it to them. Like that's
Slam
they
dunk.
deserve that one. Slam dunk, absolutely. I don't know about you all. I actually found myself more interested in the horse relationship than the Donald relationship because he had a good woman and he let it go. But man, this horse falls head over heels, nearly literally, for love
It
at
can
first
play
sight.
guitar.
Both
How
of them
cool
do.
is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Donald has guitar played to him.
Yeah.
No, this horse is playing guitar to his female love. Very well done.
I mean, it
Very
probably
well.
sounds like shit with just hooves, but still, it's pretty cool.
It's just clanking,
Yeah.
clanking on the chords and everything. So they leave. They have to tear themselves away from these young ladies to go to the front lines to get the gold-filled cannonballs back. And essentially, we don't have to go through all the shenanigans, but like they think they get them back, and then
So-
they actually were used in the battle, and they're being fired at the French. So then they have to go to the French side and get them. And
Yeah.
sorry, Christian. All I was
No,
gonna say
I
was
just want to say during that part, that the panel during the part that you're describing, I just before we move on,
page 163
and
162.
162, that panel, I spent so long just looking at it and just like observing everything that was on it because it's so well done. Like it is mind blowing how much detail is in there. Like even the dump stuff, like there's little things that you can notice in between all the soldiers and stuff, right? And they have, even a lot of the background stuff that's
A slotted
really well done.
spoon.
Yes. But then you have the horse that that Alex has been really head over heels for, and he is like he has the whole like the cannon hit him, and he's like making a joke only to the readers, like my boss is bonkers, and you're like, what is happening here? It's so well done. This whole page or both these pages, like that one giant panel, it's awesome.
They did something in War and Peace that they don't do in Les Mis 2. On that same panel 163 and the one before it, they have illustrations along the bottom, like the French musket model 1777, a favorite in Napoleonic Wars, and then the Cossack switching sides and stuff. I love those little animations that like try and add a little bit of like realism to the historical fiction that we have here. And they do it throughout this one, and it's just War and
my
Peace
favorite was
is absolutely
160.
stunning.
Yeah, my favorite was like 168 and 169 because they do like the before and after of a soldier. So like the brave hussar before the battle, it shows him like in his uniform, and after it shows him like pretty much in his underwear. And like, dude, look at the pecs on this guy. Like, look at him in the uniform, and all of a sudden his uniform comes off, and it's like he's been sucking those bad boys in because look at the titties on this guy. Like, it's like huge.
That's the panel suppressed in 168 and 69. This is the panel. This is the second of my favorite panels between what Christian just said and 62, 63. But this is the Red Square completely in flames, and you're watching the French march on Moscow. And to your point, they have like the illustrations of the soldiers and the czars, like before and after Napoleon, before and after and stuff. But then the bottom, they have the Muscovites, so all the wealthy people fleeing, which is just like the wealthy class, which is just it is an incredible illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely loved it. So yes, as I just said, Donald goes to the French side of the battle, and he is literally catching cannonballs with a net. And what I loved about that scene is that it goes back to the very first panel of this whole story, where he is trying to catch him with a net, and the guy's like, "What in the world are you doing?" And it's almost like a freeze frame where he's like, well, "Let me tell you how I got in this situation."
Mm-hmm.
And then you do everything that leads to it. So yeah, go to France. He ends up getting he gets imprisoned. He gets out of prison with some help, and they end up getting the cannonballs back and taking them. Or I'm sorry, the cannonballs were already gotten by his by Scrooge taken to the mountains, right? And I'm forgetting what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Scrooge has gone to the mountains. That's what it was.
Oh,
And to save the day
His friend.
was Dazus.
Plato, I
Yeah.
think.
Plato, yeah. He's like has a
Mhm.
beard, no mustache guy, yeah.
Plato is there, but then what was it? Dazus. Goodness, I'm gonna forget her name.
Ducktasha, whatever her name is.
Ducktasha.
Yeah. And then that's
Poor
a cute
thing.
little ensemble there. I like her hat. That's a very cute
Yeah.
hat.
Mm-hmm.
They essentially come up with a plan where they are going to bring a food truck, a fast
Yep.
food truck or
Yeah.
wagon to the French, and as they're feeding them, they're going to steal all the gold cannonballs, and they're essentially going to take the food out of the food truck, put the cannonballs in, leaving with the same weight they brought in. So nobody will be the wiser,
Real
and
quick,
that's how they get the money back. Yeah.
the other bookmark I placed was on page 174 with the food truck because I was dying laughing at Coo Cola. I thought that was
Yeah.
so
COUP.
fucking funny.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a part just
I-
before that too where they're shooting like they're on the French side with the cannonballs, and Donald Duck is like telling his horse like, "Yo, hey, ignore these are the French cannonballs, so you can go ahead and ignore them." And his horse is like, "I'm calling the World Wildlife Federation on you."
Yes, dude, that was so funny. And even when he's like, I need you to take this letter back to the farm and don't stop for anything. And he's like, fucking try to stop me.
Yeah.
There were two pieces of detail that I really liked in the food truck. So one was the pommes frites, right? Because they wouldn't be burgers and
Mhm.
French fries for an American audience, but they made them
Mhm.
pommes frites. But the other one, it's just the name. It's the Earl of Sandwiches
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of the Earl of Sandwich, which is so good when I
Yeah.
was reading that. Yeah, I honestly liked everything about the way they handled War and Peace better, from the illustration to the story and everything. Was like a fucking 10 out of 10 on
Mhm.
this thing. The last piece there, I guess, as they are getting the cannonballs back to Scrooge in the mountains, that band of criminals catches up to them. They form a plan to essentially trip all their horses up by the classic tie a rope around two trees gag, and they let the horses run off. So what do? They tie these criminals up and use manual labor to walk this huge wagon back to the mountains, which I feel like is probably
yeah.
a humanitarian violation.
Hell yeah.
They're criminals.
And then they go with-
Fuck 'em.
And then to go one further, they put them in the Tsar Cannon 1569 and they shoot them back to Siberia. But there was one
Where
note
they
on
fucking
here
belong.
on 180
Oh, God.
on 181. So they're like they say don't fret, you'll be back in Siberia in no time. And they're like, we'll be back. As they're putting him in, they're like, you can't just shoot us out of a cannon. And there's just a little writer's note that says, historians note that the first orbital flights were crude. Just like flying through the air. That's a good touch.
Yeah.
So that is War and Peace. I know we kind of talked about it throughout, but yeah, thoughts on War and Peace, which I thought was just knocked
Yeah.
out of the park.
So I think the reason that I think I liked it more was because I the only thing I knew about War and Peace was like something like it has upwards of 500. It's like 570. I think I looked at the front of the book. It's like 570 characters and it's like 1,200 pages long. So I knew going in, I was like, okay, this is clearly going to be like a Cliff's Notes version of the story. Whereas for Les Mis, I literally had no idea. I had no knowledge of it whatsoever. I know my knowledge of Les Mis was that there is a thing out there called Les Mis, and that's it. There's nothing else. So for this one, because I knew, I guess, a little bit more going in, I was like, okay, well, let's just see. And because they're doing a Cliff Notes version, their foot is on the gas pedal like the entire time of the story. So I think it just lends itself better to that kind of thing, and you're just being able to appreciate like all the sort of the high notes of everything like Alex was describing, that they crush it. It's so well done.
I
agree.
think sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, just I agree with that. I thought this was I did enjoy the Les Mis half a lot. I thought it was really good. This was just that much better. I thought the story was better. the animation or the illustrations, not the animation, was top tier, and I laughed harder in this half. Just everything about it was really good. I'm glad that this was the second story and not the first story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I had a better taste in my mouth at the end of it from reading the second, though I do wish we would have had as much time with War and Peace as we had with Les Mis, because Les Mis was like 116 pages. This was like 70. So I do like the time with that. I wish we had more, but I do agree that it came second. I've seen the movie War and Peace, but I've seen two of them. But they always center around the love story angle, which this did too. But in a 1,200 page book with 500 characters, like clearly, I know a big part of it is a political story and the story of the Muscovites. I think Scrooge as a whole was one character that represented many characters doing different things, right? Like hoarding their money and so on in that story. So I like the way they condense things. But honestly, like reading that made me want to go read War and Peace. Until then I read and it was like, yeah, like 500 characters. I was like, no, I'm not gonna put myself through that. Like that's how good I thought that was. It left me thinking that if I went and actually put time into War and Peace, I would not like it as much as I like this story. And maybe that's the problem. Like maybe that's why I didn't like Les Mis as much, because I know it so much. I'm the biggest show choir kid that was never in show choir. I love musicals and plays and stage plays. So I've seen Les Mis done well, that I thought this was okay. But I've never seen enough War and Peace, so I thought this was astounding.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is great. Anybody else?
No, good.
All right. Well, guys, we had a really good laugh whenever I announced that this was a thing on my order form. So I'm glad that we
Nice little surprise.
actually got to read it and talk about it. So
Yeah, it was awesome.
appreciate you guys doing this with me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you,
you.
Jake.
Yeah, thanks for the book.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've had at least 3 people that have either seen this like on my coffee table in the living room, or that I've talked with, that were like, I gotta have a copy of that. I gotta know what it is, just like we were. So
Yeah.
I think I've ordered a total of 8 or 10 of these books, which is
Okay.
crazy. I have to
That's
be
awesome,
I
though.
have to be the highest selling comic shop in America for this particular book.
You're gonna get a
I'm-
call like you did with that other company.
I know. I wish I would. Send me more. Like I want to read more of these. I think they're great.
I was gonna say, I'm not gonna lie, like I will probably reach out to you and see if you can order maybe some of the others.
Yeah.
Because like they do have me interested in some of the other stories. I looked at the list, kind of like you said. I'm sure some of them are classics, but none of them stuck out to me like these
Mhm.
two. Like I knew these names immediately. But still, yeah, I think I would like to check out some others because it was fun. It was a fun
Yeah.
read.
Well, if they
I
got
think
Uncle
it-
Scrooge in 1984, get me that one, okay?
I will.
That would be incredible.
I think that this just it's one of those books that truly is all ages. Like kids are gonna read this
Yep.
and laugh, like, haha, guys are getting shot out of cannons. And like we did too, but we also appreciate the writer's note and the all of the puns and the names and stuff that the kids wouldn't think is funny, but it's got something truly for all ages.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this would be a really fun way. I wish that when I was in school, like this would be a great way to introduce somebody to both of these, like, great literary works and blah, blah, blah.
Technically, my
Like,
introduction. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was mine too, but I'm just saying, like, if you were a kid, like in school, and some teacher was like, "We're gonna read, Les Mis and War and Peace," and you're like, "Boo!" and they're like, "But it's the Uncle Scrooge version." You're like, "Yes!"
Hell
like,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point, Christian, that I hadn't really thought about. But like they do a great job at actually putting like author profiles to the beginning, and they talk
Yeah.
about Victor Hugo and so on, and Tolstoy. And I actually, funny enough, like I learned reading something. I had no idea that Victor Hugo and Tolstoy had ever crossed paths. Like I know their names independently. But apparently, like Tolstoy spent time with Victor Hugo and actually gave I think it was Victor Hugo the idea to kind of start to write on the poverty issue and so on. So I learned, I think it'd be a great way to help kids learn because you could teach on the
Yeah.
real thing after going through the fun part. It's a very well put together book, and one that would have no reason to get banned in a school today. So more of these in schools.
Or Uncle Scrooge.
just don't take away the learning of like evade the tax man and hide your money. Like it's the only thing that I think Scrooge did there.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I bet if we look it up, there's probably a Muppet Babies version of Les Mis or War and Peace, if I had to guess, because they did all sorts of literary kind of like interpretations.
Mhm.
Yeah. I used to watch the shit out of Muppet Babies,
Yeah,
man.
love Muppet
That's
Babies.
good stuff. But yeah,
now I'm gonna
that
look, Preston.
Now you know.
that is it for the two worlds portion of this. I believe you guys have a topic for us all to discuss, so I'll hand it over.
We
Wanna go ahead
do,
and-
yeah. So we were thinking. So this came back up because the other night, Preston, as he normally does, if he's looking at my TV, he snoops to see what is on my Xbox, to see what or PlayStation, whatever's on my console. He's like, what's he been up to? What's he got on here that I don't know about? And Liza P was reinstalled, and he did. What's funny is I was waiting for him to say something. So I just figured he would, but he didn't. And so it was only until the next day where he was like, he texted me randomly. He's like,
I
"Hey,
saw
by
it
the
on the
way,"
GG app. Yeah.
yeah, and he was like, "By the way, what caused you to get back into that?" And he's like, "I noticed the other night, and I just didn't say anything." But we were talking about it there, which was so. I don't know how many episodes it was now. It was probably at least like 10 episodes ago. But I had first tried Liza P literally like maybe a week or so after it had come out, and it was not my cup of tea, more or less. The just didn't feel right, especially when it's trying to emulate something like Bloodborne, which is one of my favorite games of all time. It was the game that I got Alex to play that convinced him that he actually did like Souls games. It's that good. And so when you're emulating that, I'm like, I'm going to be way probably harsher than I normally would. And so there was just a lot of things that didn't feel right. It felt off. And I just was just like, I'm sure this is well made and I can tell that people are really liking it, but just for me, it's just not clicking. Fast forward to like a week ago, they put out a giant update that basically overhauled like a bunch of different mechanics, like changed how the character starts, the parry window, or not the parry window, the parry itself, which was something that I personally complained about. All like dodge movements, just in general, like performance things, all from top to bottom. And even further back, obviously the biggest one that everybody probably knows is like Cyberpunk, right? That game launched in an absolute garbage state that looked like not anything that was resembling a trailer. And only just now is it in a state in which it resembles the original trailers that we got way back in the day. So this is kind of a topic that we've been kind of brewing on for a little while, and Liza P just sort of brought it back up again. But was how, from a critical perspective, like when you're reviewing anything or just, whatever, how do you handle when a game either fixes a core set of problems, like in Liza P's case, or completely reinvents itself, like Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky or things like that? How do you handle that from a critical perspective? And like, what's the right way to still, handle all of that?
Just for some clarity for the conversation here, when you say how do you handle that, do you mean like how do you square it with yourself? Like how do you view the game after that?
Both. So like, how do you do it for yourself, and then critically, like from your own, like I'm trying to examine this, piece of art from whatever thing, but then also how should the industry at large handle it from like reviews sake, right? So like if like Kotaku or whatever releases a review on Cyberpunk, but then 2 years from now, or 2 years from when it launched, it's basically a completely different game. How do you handle that? But yes, for both personally and just industry wide. I can go first because I had an idea on it, and then we can just go from there
No,
if that's what we wanted to do.
No, I don't want you to go first. You've had too much time to think about it.
I'll say like how I deal with it. So like for example, like something like No Man's Sky, like one of the few people who actually enjoyed how No Man's Sky was in the very beginning, but obviously it's a much different game now. So
you were one of two people. It was you and me.
yeah, exactly. But it's changed so much and it's overhauled itself so much to where it's essentially a different game nowadays. How would I rate that? I mean, I always look at it of how it first started out. Like we got Cyberpunk getting award nominations this year at the New Game Awards, and I'm like, no, that game launched in a shitty, trashy state. This should not get its limelight. Like everybody's all like, "Oh, it's a great game now." I'm like, "That's fine," but they should still be having this slap on the hand still, or should be in like timeout because they feel like fucking up the very beginning and like ruining the whole launch of it. But yeah, it's
devil's advocate on that. The only award they got was like community or something, right?
It was best ongoing support.
Game.
Best ongoing support. So yeah, okay, ongoing. So you finally fixed your game. Great, good job. That's not what ongoing should be.
I agree with you.
Yeah. But I mean, am I curious about playing it? Sure, but I'm not going to sit here and sing praise like Cyberpunk is one of the greatest games in the world. Even if it's a decent game, I'm gonna say like, it's just still gonna be that sour taste in my mouth because I was there. I knew how it got, but I got PlayStation and refunded me my money and everything for that fucking game. So it's just, it will always leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. How I think they should go about it, they're never going to do it, but they should wait to release a game until it's done. They're not going to fucking do that.
So sorry. I mean, what I mean for industry wide is how should like
viewers,
critics handle? Yeah, sorry, I should have been more specific. So like, major publications or things like how should they handle it?
You're running into the same kind of deal where you do with like Destiny or something like that, to where an ongoing game, an actual ongoing game, which should get nominations if they're doing well because it's an ongoing game, live service game, if you will. You can kind of review the parts that came out. So if you want to review Cyberpunk, you have the release date Cyberpunk, and then you have version 5.7, whichever one fucking fixed it in the end. And then you can have a review of that patch of that thing, but I don't think that should change the initial review that you had of that game because it needs to be out there. Like you can't rewrite history just because you fucking put a patch out that fixed the fucking game.
So I'll ask a question to the other two on here. And Casey, I know you say you don't play a lot of games. So I'm not sure if you've run into this. I know Jake plays a game that is perpetually broken in his eyes, right? In Halo. So I guess, Jake, to you, it's hard because I know you play a lot of Nintendo, and honestly, a lot of Nintendo games don't release broken. So it's you may not run into that as much.
Or when they do, Nintendo just goes.
Right. but for like Halo, say they listen to everything you had a problem with, which when it comes to network stuff, maybe is on the upside, right? So say we're 3 or 4 months in, they've released the network stuff. All of a sudden, when you hit somebody with a hammer, they die. When you shoot rockets at their feet, they die, and so on. How would you view that game? Because you've been playing Halo for a couple years now and have been real angry.
Mm-hmm.
So what would it be if they flipped the light switch? Oh, I've heard it be angry. It's fun.
I think Halo is in its own category because I've played Halo since it launched in 2001, and that's like the game that I've played. I mean, let's be real. We can call that my whole life, right? Because that was like a genre-defying game, I think.
It's a cultural like touchdown at this point. Yeah.
Yes.
Jake was also born on Leap Day, so he's really only 6 years old anyway. So
right. It's just one of those things where no matter how good or bad Halo is, I'm gonna play it no matter what. If I didn't play it 4 or 5 times a week with my dad, would I keep playing it as often? Probably not. So that's a big
You probably would have just switched back to MCC.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about MCC. When it launched, it was an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Now now that they've stopped supporting it, it's amazing. So like I just said, it started out shitty, now it's great. If Infinite started shitty and then turned great, and be like, well, it was shitty, now it's great. That's just Halo. When it comes to like Cyberpunk, that's not a game that I've played, but everyone here knows how much I love CD Projekt Red and the Witcher
Yep.
games. They made Cyberpunk. If I had been hyped and was like a day one buyer of Cyberpunk, I would probably feel differently. But my stance on that is just, this is, as far as I know, is the only time that CD Projekt Red has ever fucked up like this.
Didn't they mess up a bit on Witcher 3 at the very
But
beginning?
yeah, so for
But they
Witcher
gave free
3
updates to fix
but
it
it's
and
not-
stuff. Like,
so I think Jake is still correct. When Witcher 3 launched, it was like in rougher shape than where it ended, but it's nothing on the level of what happened with Cyberpunk. Like Cyberpunk really was a truly
a bait and,
unique-
it felt like a bait and switch.
I remember them
sort of
saying
like,
like
sure.
thank you or like the apology letter and everything back then.
Yeah.
in the
Right.
game.
Right. Well, still, it's just like, if we talk about like EA, right, or any other big company like that, we can say that they've done that a lot, and we can
like what
name,
Battlefront 2?
Yeah.
we could name 5 games that each of these big companies have done that with. With CD Projekt Red, they've done it once, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they've maybe learned their lesson.
Sure.
We'll see when the next game drops. If it's another Cyberpunk, then it's like, okay, they're like everybody else.
They
Or
already announced a new
if
Witcher.
they release another masterpiece like Witcher 3, then I'm of a mind that was like, look, they fucked up. They made it good eventually, which says something about them. And if the next one's good, I think we can say there was a fluke, even if it was a really big fluke for some people. But if it were any other game, like Liza P, I've not played that. But if I felt the way that Christian did when it came out, I'd be like, sorry, you guys blew your chance. There are a
Yeah.
million other games that I can play right now. I don't give a shit if you fixed it. The hype is gone. I'm not coming back to it. If I were Kotaku or some other game site, I kind of agree with Preston that it's like, nah, fuck those guys. Like, my review should be out there forever. But at the same time, there should be some sort of like edit. Here's what happened after the big update. It is good. Like, but know how much I hated it, and this is what they did.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
still bad, but at least they fixed it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
I actually feel like anybody that writes reviews across the gamut of like genres and industries, if you're going to write a day one review and kind of hate on things like that, you should be forced to do a follow-up for a bunch of like both directions, because we know when something bad happens, like Cyberpunk, it's now the cool thing to do to write the bad review, right? Like that. So everybody piles onto it, but take it the other way. Like, take the MCU. People might see a movie and praise on it because it was the popular thing to do. But then when you go back to it, you realize it's not so good, or they made mistakes or whatever. I don't know. There should. I think that people oftentimes jump the gun. CD Projekt is an interesting one because theirs is bad enough that actually led to firings and a lot of internal drama with finance. And theirs was different too, kind of like the Activision, and why Destiny had issues for a while. It all came down to money and finance. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to put on the storytellers of the game. So I think you should give them a shot when they get the reins back to do what they want to do. But we live in a reactionary world where it's really easy to hate, and I am okay with giving a game a chance or coming back to it later and letting it turn into what it needs to turn into down the road.
So I do think, because I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, because obviously there are tons of times where people are just haters be haters, or they are throwing praise to throw praise. I think for CD Projekt's case, whether it's in that particular instance, I think that they deserved the negative things that happened. Like everything that everybody wrote about that game was true. It was bad. And I still remember, before this podcast even was a thing, or sorry, before our podcast was a thing, you guys are so go, but like when Cyberpunk was like first coming out, I remember I had watched an early Giant Bomb video about Jeff, who had came back from a preview event, who had played it and was like, guys, this is looking bad. Like, this is not what it should be looking like. And it doesn't do any of the things they said. And I still remember Alex and Preston, when they were on Discord with me, were like, nah, he was just a hater. It's fine. I'm going to wait till day one. I believe in them. It's going to happen. And then it exploded and it was true. And then CD Projekt turned around and tried to blame QA testers. They tried to blame low-level developers. They tried to blame all these other people except for the studio heads, which were the actual people who were at fault, in my opinion, or who are always at fault, in my opinion. Because there's no developer, there's no regular person who wants to release a bad game, like, ever. That's not a thing that, you know, ever wants to happen. But it's usually studio heads and managers that make these decisions. So it's hard because, like, I think that at a high level, these companies definitely need to be held accountable for when they ship things that are either abject lies or are bad, like, products. But I do think that, to your point, Alex, I do think that also shouldn't, like, sway developers from wanting to, like, you know, sort of how, like, No Man's Sky did it, which is like put their heads down and just keep working on it until they can release it. So, like, I don't have a problem going back and checking something out if I've heard that it's different or if something has been fixed. Critically, I think, for me, I think you always, to Jake's point and to press, I think you always have to leave that review there. You cannot get rid of that original review. I think you have to let people know how that game launched and where it was at. But then I think even having a simple blurb, it you know, in the same article or however you want to do it, but being like, if we were to review it today, right? Like, here's what it would look like if we reviewed it as a product today, and then give a second, like, separate score, then I think that's probably the best way to handle it, because you're still rewarding whatever work goes back into it to make it the better thing that it should be, while also not trying to erase the fact that it was a dumpster fire in the beginning. Like,
But, like, who cares? And I don't say this lightly, and I don't mean it facetiously. Who cares? Like, if you go find a review, and I'll tell you why. Like, if you find a review today from a game that came out 3 years ago, that's different now than it was 3 years ago. Why do I care to read a review on how the game was 3 years ago? I don't think you should reward it at all. So, Preston, to your point, when it won an award for best ongoing game, I even had a problem with that, because, like, that's stupid. You just fixed a game that was broken. You should not be celebrated with accolades, but, like, who cares about the review piece of it from 3 years ago if it's not the same thing? Warframe is not the same game it was today that it was 10 years ago. And I'm not ever saying Warframe is ever bad, but, like, I can't read a review from the launch of the PS4 when it came out and get an idea of what that game is today, because it's gone through so many iterations.
well, I think that's you can. That's why they review expansions and releases in their own separate things. So that it's like if you search Warframe as reviews, it'll have Warframe Original, and then it's links to all the different expansions they've done since then.
Right.
But that's a whole.
But you think that's gonna keep people from buying it if I read it and say,
No.
"Oh, I'm gonna try this out," but, like, it was bad at launch, like, fuck this company?
I don't know that it's gonna. I don't know that matters at all. I think that the reason that it's important to have that stuff is because you need to know. I think it's important to have that history there, because at the end of the day, even though games, in my opinion, are art and all other stuff, it's still a product that you purchase. And I think that if you get to a point where everybody erases any mistakes going forward, there's going to be people who had not heard about whatever happened with Cyberpunk, or how Witcher 3, potentially launched, or No Man's Sky, or even in a minor case like Lies of P and all those other things. That allows it lets the people who made those poor decisions in the first place off the hook in the future. Like, if you were to erase what happened with Battlefront 2 to the point where it was fixed and all this other stuff, and there was not stories about how it was boycotted and left on shelves and doing all this other stuff, that's essentially just letting EA off the hook. It's the same way where companies now, if they do something stupid, they just go, well, all we have to do is just wait out this news cycle. It'll be okay. It'll blow over. We'll wait out this news cycle, and then nobody will remember that we fucking blamed our QA testers and low-level developers for fucking Cyberpunk being fucked up instead of what it actually was.
This is the jaded part of me, but that already, in my opinion, that already happens. EA does nothing but release broken games. Look at EA FC. It's like a terrible soccer game, but they still sell millions. And their Battlefront had nothing to do or did no impact on this, right? And it's just,
I mean,
I think for big companies,
it
they
affected
already
that series.
Just wait out the news cycle. It did. It affected Battlefront, and there's a few games like Grand Theft Auto remake that was all that port that was redone. Like that was a terrible game that people shouldn't forget about, but often gets overlooked because of other games like Cyberpunk and so on. I almost think you should do the opposite. I think we should celebrate the people that stick around to fix games, like the No Man's Sky team, more than try and hurt the companies that don't, because like those big company, the big.
But how is leaving an old
one
review hurting that company? And you're also re-reviewing it, but how is it hurting anything by leaving the history up there as opposed to trying to erase it?
I'm not saying like get rid of it. I'm just saying who cares? Like, does it really affect people? Like, I think
That sounds like you said the same thing. I don't.
People hold on to it, and I don't think leaving it up, like expecting people to find old reviews to hate on something, would mean as much as celebrating people that made things better.
Do you still really
things?
Do you still believe that what happened with Cyberpunk was people hating though? Like really, honestly?
No, but the people that did a lot of that are gone.
They're
so
not.
like, why don't you celebrate a lot of the investment heads, the people that wanted their money back that led to that quick release? They're no longer associated with CD. So like, why don't you celebrate the team that stuck with it? And again, like not give them awards, but why don't you talk about the 14 team, again, the No Man's Sky team? Like we should be telling stories about these people that really stayed with it and worked to give the fans eventually what they deserve, versus like continually calling back to the way something launched or what led to that, because like we don't always know what led to these terrible releases in the back room that put out a crappy product, right? And a lot of the people that put out crappy products are the big companies where at the end of the day it's not going to matter to them anyway. So I just think, getting people to stick with something that they want them to get better or that gets better means more than just like,
But that's what
bad.
But that's what a second review would do anyway. Like if you're saying like this is what it would look like if we reviewed today and then it jumps up 30 points, that is celebrating those new people. Like I don't understand why I don't understand the difference between what I'm talking about as why would somebody need to go back and delete the old review and post a new one as opposed to just being like here's what it was, here's what happened, and this is what it would look like today.
No, I'm fine. I said earlier, like I'm fine with doing, a re-review or something like that. Does make sense, as you said. I think we oftentimes harp too much on the failures and don't call out the successes, I guess. Right. Again, we live in a reactionary world where everybody finds it easy to hate on things and continue to hate on things forever. And I don't think we give credit to the people that actually stick with it to make it better, that sort of thing. That sounds very much like I'm saying like pick yourself up by your bootstraps and make yourself better. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like we tell too many negative stories. We don't celebrate enough of the positive things or the people that work to make it better. That's all.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that anytime somebody sticks around to make a game better, they do always. Like I've never seen a situation in which somebody has came back to fix their game and then everybody's been like, yeah, too late, go fuck yourself. Like Cyberpunk is getting it's sold more in the most recent, like the last like 6 months than it has in its entire life cycle. No Man's Sky is like has more players attached to it now than it ever has. So like, I think that I don't know. I think that people do reward when people come back and fix. 14 is a great example of people coming back and continually supporting a game after it came back and fixed. But I do think it's important to be like to not just like get rid of what happened because it's still there. And to your point about sports games, I mean, I think that's a one-off example of where people are addicted to gambling, and it's just
that's an EA problem. EA is just they're allowed to release shit and always get away with it.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the day that Jake eats crow and says, "Hey guys, I just played some matches at Halo. It is now a good game."
I think that you guys think that I don't want that day to come, but I do want that day to come. There's no part of me that likes hating on Halo. I fucking love Halo. I just want it to be good.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've had a lot of fun playing with you and your dad, and some other people we played with. And when I hurt my hand, I never told Allie this, but when I hurt my hand like the next day and I knew it was bad and it was going to be a while, one of the things that popped in my head first was like, man, I'm not going to be able to play Halo for a long time. And like, I'm not going to be able to play with Jake. And I was like, and I was starting to get better. Right. Like, and just get into it. And I was big sad. I'm still big sad.
I know, man. You really, you said you were going to put in the time and improve. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Lose it all.
Casey, do you have any thoughts on the matter? Because I know that you do at least play like NBA games and stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if they're sending out a broken game, they need to be held accountable. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's like, yo, yeah, you can fix it 3 years later, but who gives a shit? That's too little too late. I already gave you my $70. Like, the games are too damn expensive for that. Like, you're rushing them out, you're doing all this shit, and yet you're wanting the prices even go up. So it's like, how does that make any sense? The quality goes down and the prices go up, but hey, at least, LeBron looks really sweaty right now. So
I want to see all of LeBron's sweat. Casey, are you a basketball fan?
Yeah.
Who's your team?
Pacers and Spurs.
Man, we should have just done our basketball cast today. We've talked about it. If I knew that, we have so many things basketball wise we can talk about, from Draymond saying he would have retired if it wasn't for Adam Silver calling him personally to the in-season to the tournament. Like, so much good stuff to talk about. To Giannis completely getting just like swatted by wait, what's his Wemby the other day? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can't with it.
It was a good play. It was a good play.
Can I ask, side note, you know what? We can even end this. I'll ask it after the fact. It's fine. I don't want to derail us because it's been a long day.
Like, to Casey's point real quick, I think that it's worse for the sports gamers because, Casey said, I already gave you my $70. Once they put out that game, once 24 comes out, the next day they're working on 25. Yeah. And like that previous one doesn't fucking matter anymore.
And if you
there's no competition.
Yeah,
no other basketball game to go to. Yeah.
If you talk to the developers that work on those titles, the biggest problem is that it is basically the tech version of a sweatshop. Like, they never leave their cubicle. Like, they are always stuck there. To your point, Jake, the day it ships, they already had a sub team that had broken off on them that was already working on next year's to be able to shit it out really fast so that they have it to hit that release date, because they do have a monopoly on it. And there's nothing. That's why I think it's a whole other animal based on everything that we were talking about. Is because, like in Halo's instance, Halo has the thing where it's like, there's other shooters on the market. So when you don't show up and you don't show up correctly, like, you really are on a limited time window to fix it and get it to the point that it should be, because there's other shooters that can take up somebody's
Apex,
right?
Destiny. I guess
the sports games don't have that luxury. Like, it is, if I'm somebody who likes playing FIFA, my option is to play FIFA and gamble my entire paycheck away on player cards, or not, and find something else to do. And it's
sorry, go ahead.
So with sports games too, how disgusting that culture is. Like, when you walk into work, if you make the game, you're a peon. But if you work in that finance department, that all you do is think of new ways to sell the same cards to people, like you are a god on that campus. And it has to
Oh,
be
yeah.
the biggest bro culture you've ever seen. You know, it's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, the last time that I can think of competition was for my Sega Genesis. There I had NBA Jam, which I know everybody knows NBA Jam, and whether you
Mhm.
like basketball or not, you probably think that game is fun. And then there was
Tecmo.
surprise, EA made NBA Live. And they put
Yeah.
out NBA Live every year. I've got like NBA Live 97 or 98 back on that shelf next to NBA Jam. And Jam was way fucking better. NBA Live is a terrible basketball game. And it's like, how is it that EA ended up being the ones that to this day are the only ones that can make these fucking games?
Well, we get 2K
Same
now,
thing with the
too.
2K games.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
2K
get
games
2K,
were better
yeah.
than EA. Yeah.
Mm.
It was
And
weird,
I don't
though.
play enough.
I had a EA. It was 2003 for GameCube, and that one, it was awesome. Like I played that so much, but then like they changed up, like the controls just slightly. Like 3 years later, when I was like, yeah, I'll get a new one now, and I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And like
So much so that they'll even make an option in the control setting that's like NHL 94 buttons.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how about that just be the button layout?
Yes, exactly. Why
I
don't you just
don't
make that
understand-
game again?
I say I don't understand how they get away with it too, because like EA made FIFA, but FIFA broke off as of this year, so now the new game is EA FC. But still, they're just like, that's fine. You can go play the FIFA game when it comes out, or like you can still maybe get like extra credits from playing last year's version or whatever. So like we're still going to hold you into this ecosystem. So even if you want to leave, you can't. It's just they're gross. EA is the worst.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother topic. So, Preston, you look like you have a puppers ready to go bed.
Dude, Tat, ready to go to bed?
He doesn't want to look at
Look at
the
what-
camera.
Look at him. Look at him. He's a little butter man. He's melty.
He's a good boy.
He is. Oh, he's stinky.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you all for joining our half of this podcast. Jake, I'll let you sign off because technically we are invading you. I mean, you had us on. You asked if we want to do this crossover. I know we had talked about it in the past, but you guys made it happen. So from the testing room side, thank you for hanging out with us. But Jake, I will pass it back over.
Sure. Yeah, we'll be back next week with a regular episode. We're really glad that we were able to get everybody together for this. Hopefully, if you're Just Two Worlds listeners, you enjoyed some insight into the gaming industry. And as always, please check them out on the regular as well. We love their show. We love these guys. And I know we're going to do some more crossover stuff in the future. We've been throwing around the idea of doing some sort of tabletop RPG like D&D one shot. So we'll look forward to that in the future. But that's it for us. So we'd love to stay in chat, but we have to, form a giant robot and kick Rita Repulsa's ass. So we'll catch you next time. See you guys.
Hell yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Testing Room. To catch up on past episodes or check out the newest ones when they drop, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If watching is more your thing, check out youtube.com/thetestingroom or Twitch TV/testingroompod. To leave comments and ask questions, follow us on Instagram @testingroompod and email us at testingroompod@gmail.com. See you next time.